I'm Nick Von Walkerbarth, and you're listening to the VonDubCast. If you don't want to listen to me gap in the intro and you want to skip right to the interview, skip about 8 minutes. Before you do, please consider doing one of these couple things that really helps out the show. Following the social medias for the VonDubCast, subscribing, and leaving a review. If you could do those things, that'd be awesome. Also, give me a subscription on the YouTube channel. That'd be great too. Hey everybody, this is Nick Von Walkerbarth, and you're listening to the VonDubCast, episode 91. Really special episode for you guys. If you'd listened to the first one with Phil Troyer, when he was just planning out the 200-mile, not race, it was a run. He did it for charity. It was one of the best episodes. He told us about his grizzly bear encounter, and I was really excited to get him back on when he was finished the race to come see how it went and what he learned, and just kind of hear all the ins and outs of a run that size. I mean, just trying to fathom what 200 miles, over 200 miles looks like. Just it's really hard for most people, for myself included, but it was cool to kind of get a full look at what it's all about, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. There was a film crew there. There was a lot of the sponsors, a lot of the stories, a lot of the logistics. I think what was a little bit different for this one for Phil was it's not just showing up to a race where it's marked out and the stations are where they set them up, and you kind of bring your crew and your infrastructure and your your food and your spare shoes, and you just kind of go point to point. Not only do you have to still do all that stuff, but you have to make the points and figure it out. And when weather adjusts the track, they had to do it in real time, and he had some real special people helping him out with that. But it just was very interesting to hear all that goes in behind the scenes to put on an event like that. So I really had a great time talking to Phil about everything that he learned about himself on that journey, and just kind of what it takes to push yourself to that level. I don't think that's the frame I would take if I wanted to really push myself or try something, and maybe running wouldn't be it. But just I think things like that are just universally applicable. If you can push yourself past the realm of normality, whatever that is, I think, obviously with Phil it's running, but I think you can find that whatever it is in your life, you're really going to get a lot out of it. And those lessons become, the further you push yourself, the more universal the lessons you're going to learn become, in whatever range that is. So I think it's awesome to talk to people like that and to listen to people like that are doing it for us, because not all 8 billion people in the world can push themselves to that degree in whatever their thing is. So you kind of got to learn from the people that do. And I think that's what I really got out of this episode, was just kind of taking all that information and all that knowledge from Phil. It was really fun to talk to him, reconnect. He's got lots on the go right now. He's got a new job and all this, and they raised some really good money for Odyssey House. So it was nice to catch up with him. I'm sure this is not going to be the last time we have him on the podcast. He still has some, I thought this was the craziest dream he could come up with, but it sounds like he's got a lot more things in his sights of things to do in the future. So I'm sure he'll be coming on to tell us all about it. Yeah. So other than that, usually give you guys a little update on how I'm doing. I know I really hinted at something big coming on last week on the podcast. A couple people reached out to me, and I've told a couple people now, but I'm still keeping it. I was hoping that today's episode would be the one where I tell you guys all about it, but I think it's going to have to wait till maybe either if I do another episode this week, maybe a solo episode, I might be able to kind of let you guys know what that is. And if not, then next week for sure. I can't imagine it'll go another week, but I'm really, really excited to tell you. Sorry to keep the suspense going on you. Like I said, I have told a few people. So if you feel like I'll probably tell you if you reached out, just reach out and I'll probably break confidentiality and let you know what's on the way. But just to kind of roll off that, I mean, if you guys could do me those big favors, this is always important, but it's going to become more important here in the future. To just go on the social medias, if you want to, you can share one of the posts about an episode you really liked, but just the followers, getting those numbers up, that really helps. The Twitter page, YouTube page, all those types of things, Facebook, all of it really helps. So if you guys could do that. Also, if you know anybody that wants to start a podcast, I'm really looking to help people get started with this and learn from their journey as well as mine, because I can only do so many episodes. But if I can start involving myself in other people's podcasts, that's just more opportunities to learn. Guest ideas, looking for those, and then looking for people to help out. Again, can't say all the specifics, but I'm probably going to need help in a bunch of different domains coming up. If you know anybody that knows stuff about cameras or knows stuff about audio recording, about mixing and mastering and all that stuff, if they have any sort of expertise in that, maybe send them my way, because I would love to either just pick people's brains or bring more people on board to help out with this journey and where I want to take it in the next little while. So yeah, other than that, just the old mental health update, which usually happens in these intros. doing a lot better. And again, I can't speak exactly to it, which is tough. But you guys will hear soon enough what's all going on. Just know that I am doing a bit better. Addressing some of the big things that have been weighing on me for a long time. There's still more to come. There's still a lot of changes happening and things that I need to discuss with people and changes I need to make. But to have the ball start rolling on some of them just feels like a weight's been lifted off me, and doesn't make it all go away. It doesn't make you instantly better, but just to see a light at the end of the tunnel has really turned things around. And it's still a struggle every day, and you still got to work at it. But just to have that is really, really crucial. And I would recommend to anybody, if there's one of those things where you have something looming on your big weight on your shoulders, of just addressing it, even if it's the scariest thing you can do, just ripping the Band-Aid off and getting some sort of a plan in place so that you can move past it is really important. And I can't stress that enough. So yeah, if that speaks to you at all, take it. If not, just ignore it. But other than that, the generally applicable stuff, like stuff I say every day or every week when I say this stuff, keep positive, keep fighting, say I love you to those people in your life, the special ones. You can never say it enough, and live with love, live with compassion, even though there's so many things trying to split us up and make us angry at one group of people or another. That's all the game. That's all they're trying to get, is that. And stop chewing on the cable, you freaking dog. Ay. Hey, drop it. Sorry, guys. This is going to be every intro from now on. I think it's just me arguing this with Mutt. With this Mutt. She just got a haircut and she's looking really cute, so she thinks she can get away with lots. Don't you? What was I saying? I got distracted. I apologize. It was all the rah shit. The pump up. Yeah, don't fall into it. Lead with compassion. Even if somebody seems like they are so far beyond your capability to understand why they would be on this side of a position, just try to lead with love and compassion. That will get you the first couple steps to finding where they are. And that's really important. So I'll leave you guys with that. Have a great week. Hopefully there'll be another episode this week. I'm starting to get a little bit more caught up, get some episodes in the tank. So maybe I can start doing double release episodes again here soon. Can't wait to bring the big news. Apologies to have it be so cryptic another week in a row, but that's just that's the way the cookie crumbles. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's a really great one. Really fun conversation. It was an in-person episode, and those always have a little extra spice on them compared to the Zoom ones. So I really hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys on the outro. Bye. All right. Welcome back, Phil.
Thank you.
It was a big fan favorite episode, the first one we did. I mean, I think people, it seems for guys like me that listen to so many podcasts and ultra marathon runners are just such a different beast, and they're so interesting to talk to that I feel like I hear from them all the time. I've probably listened to 20, 25 podcasts with ultra runners. So I'm quite in the zeitgeist of it, but so many people, everybody said, he runs how far? They just never even heard of this concept. It was so much fun to watch, just these people have their mind blown by that fact. How is it? I'm curious, just to start this off, how is that for you? Because I imagine if I got one small piece of that by releasing a podcast episode, you must get that shit all the time.
Yeah, and after the fact, when it's done, I still feel the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you turn 10 or 16 or 18, you expect to, probably 10, I guess.
Yeah.
You expect to feel different when you're 10. You wake up in the morning, you still feel the same.
Right.
It's the same thing. I woke up the next morning and I felt like shit, but
yeah.
But you don't, inside you don't really feel any different. And I think part of that is because of the mindset.
Right. And that's
going
kind of the mindset
into it,
you need.
it's always in my mind. Like in my mind, I've done it. In my mind, I'm going to do it. In my mind, it's going to be done. And so when it's actually done, it's not like it's any new realization for me. It's just, this is what I was anticipating. This is what I trained for. And this is how I feel.
And that's interesting, because I think that mindset is when you're going to take on challenges like that, you need to have that mindset where failure is not even an option from start to finish, that you're going into it with that expectation that you are finishing this is what you're doing. I'm very curious, because this is kind of one of the questions I wanted to ask later on once we kind of got into it, but it so nicely fits in here. Is one of the things I've seen in the last couple of years is how much fruit there is to the idea of chasing something, either excellence in something or pushing yourself really far in one thing. It opens up your ability to do everything, right?
Yeah.
If you really try and master one thing, you learn how to master something, and it helps you in all these different areas of your life. And I'm just wondering, over this last few years of taking on this journey of getting into ultras, I'm wondering how much you see that impact the rest of your life, of the growth on the trail and for yourself. How is that transferred? Do you notice a 1-to-1 corration in other areas of your life?
For sure. And very interestingly right now, because myself and a partner, we just bought a business here in Grande Prairie.
Right.
And it's like, hands down, like the busiest thing. I love it. I'm back in aviation again full time. A new role that's stretching me. The business management is not a big stretch for me, but a lot of the Transport Canada requirements, that kind of stuff is a little bit of a stretch for me. Just like running 200 miles. You know, you can't really train for this new position, but it's all about that journey management. I can't look at the stack of paperwork. I can't look at all the broken airplanes out there. I can't look at that 200 miles and those 10 mountains that I need to run.
Yeah.
I have to just look right in front of me. Okay, what do I need to get done today? What do I have to do now? So you take the same principles you learn on the trail and the same principles you learn while you're training, and you put them to use in your everyday life. And that's the beauty of it. And it goes even into your personal life. Whatever it is, you know, you're going through a tough time in a relationship or a job or anything like that, and you can use the same principles.
Right.
So that is the very cool part about it, about ultra running.
Yeah, and I found the same thing with podcasting for sure, but even before podcasting, when I jumped into this role that I'm in currently at work at 23 years old, and same thing. Yeah. There was no way to learn it. There's no handbook for that. It's just, you know, jump off the deep end. And it was it forced me to level up so much. I just found everything else in life became easier, right? Yeah. I was forced to take on these skills to do this job, but those skills were so applicable in all these other areas that I just found it was really, for the first couple of years. I think after that, I kind of got a little bit, same with university, it was the same thing where the first couple of years, you're really into it and you're learning how to game the system. And then you kind of get, you know it too well, and you can kind of get on the other side of it too. It's interesting, but that's why you always got to be pushing yourself to that next level, and jumping into the next thing, right? That was starting this podcast. You know, if the job was getting boring, doing the job plus this podcast is definitely anything but boring.
You know, I think aviation is kind of like ultra running. Like there's so many variables out there. There's so many, you know, different twists and turns and lines of work and things you can do. And so it really is it very much applies to this.
Right. And kind of right in that same vein, something that's a little bit different about this last race than some of the ones you've done more traditionally. You had a lot different of a role in terms of the actual infrastructure and the planning and all that. And I'm curious, I think that's a good place to start to get into the run, is just all that stuff. Maybe from the last time that we spoke, we were probably maybe a month and a half out. And I know from that month and a half point, probably every week just ramped up the amount of work that you're doing to get this all ready. So maybe just take me through that process of what it was like to get the race together before you even stepped the first step on the trail.
So to kind of recap for the people that didn't listen to the first episode,
and if you haven't, you'll listen to it right now.
This will make a lot more sense if you listen to the first episode. So it wasn't actually a race; it was a run.
Sorry, I keep calling it a race.
I call it a race too. Yeah. Well, it wasn't. It was a run. So the idea was to run 200 miles to raise money for Odyssey House, the women's shelter in town here. I attempted to do it. I was planning to do it last year, but then because of COVID, of course, we had to cancel it.
Right.
So then I was planning to do it this year, and my work was just screwy and weird all winter long. I ended up getting laid off, and I was just about ready to pull the pin again because I was working in a camp, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, eating shitty camp food and running laps around the camp.
Not super conducive to training, hey?
Yeah, I did a lot of snowshoeing actually, like 5-6 days a week kind of thing. Like every night after a 12-14 hour shift, I'd strap on snowshoes in the dark and I'd go for a 10 or 12 kilometer snowshoe.
That's not the kind of strap on you want ever.
No. Never. But I honestly think that training was very, very, very instrumental in my success in the run. I would definitely incorporate that again.
Really? And have you thought a lot about what made those factors so applicable?
Yeah, because you wonder after it's done, you wonder, how did I do that?
Running theme, hey?
And interestingly, I've done like 100-mile race prior to this one.
Right.
In 2019, yeah.
Right.
And one thing I always get is really tight hip flexors. So I've been to the chiropractor and a massage therapist, and that hip flexor is kind of on the front of your hip. That is what you use to lift up your leg.
Right.
So my chiropractor said it's a very normal problem for people that sit lots, which I was sitting in a truck all the time.
It's a problem for everybody, and almost, and if you're not a yoga instructor, you have tight hip flexors right now.
Exactly. So he said there's two things that you shouldn't do if you have tight hip flexors.
Snowshoe?
And that's snowshoe. Snowshoe and climb hills.
Oh, well, that's
so he's like,
inconvenient.
I know you're not going to not climb hills. So he's like, don't ever snowshoe. Because then you pack a 5-pound snowshoe on your foot.
With how much the snow that gets on it.
Exactly. So he said it will not be your friend. So I was kind of hesitant snowshoeing, and I'm like, this is all I can do. Like, it was my only, the gym in the camp was closed down most of the time,
right,
because of COVID. So it was my only way to really get out and train.
Right.
So come end of March, I think it was, I got laid off, which was the best thing in the world for. And then I'm like, well, I got time now. I guess I can train for this,
go all in,
and start running.
Yeah.
Because I was, at that point, my training ones were getting up to the 25, 30K that long, and they're very important to get those long runs. So I was having a hard time doing that in camp. So when I got laid off, I was actually working in Fort St. John then at the airport for a buddy of mine, working on airplanes for him. And there's some amazing trails in Fort St. John. Like, I found tons of trails to run. So it was just like heaven. Like, I was just had a blast training up there again. And it kind of gave me a new passion, I guess, and
relit that fire.
Yeah, because I've run the trails here around Grand Prairie for so long, and most of them are a 20-minute drive from my house. So, it's not bad, but to go run out in the evening, that's another 40 minutes of driving. Yeah. Whereas the trails in Fort St. John were 5 minutes from my parents' house. So it was, and I didn't have any other requirements as far as family requirements in the evening or whatever. So I'd go home and tell Mom I'm going to go for a run. I'll have supper when I come back. And so she always had supper ready for me when I got home.
And I think there's something to be said about just not a change of scenery, but you see it so much. I mean, one of the big things that I see it in is fighting, because I watch a lot of MMA and stuff, and these fighters that go through such long careers of doing the same thing at the same camp, doing the same thing all over, and then they kind of lose that fire and they lose that passion for it, and then they just make a change. Either they move camps or they go somewhere else, or they, start doing a month in Thailand or something, and it's just this reinvigoration, that relighting of the fire. And it's so, it's almost, there needs to be something to be said for those self-check-ins of what you need. And it's so hard sometimes to recognize that that's what you need in that moment, but it's important to, cause sometimes that's all it takes. It's just that little shake-up just to get you right back in that game.
Well, and that's actually how I got into running, because prior to running, I was powerlifting.
Right.
And I wanted to go farther. Like, I wanted to compete or have a goal to work towards, and there just wasn't the opportunities. So then when I started running, I'm like, hey, there's races. I can push myself farther. I can push myself farther. Do I want to run farther than 200 miles? I wouldn't say no. Like, I still got to do a 200-mile race to make it official. But there's some pretty crazy races out there. I mean, there's the Moab 240 in Utah.
Yeah.
That might be interesting. There's a couple up in the Yukon that are in the wintertime. They're like 300 miles.
That's what I've heard. I was listening to is it Zach Bitter that has the 100-mile course world record, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to him on a podcast, and he was talking about some of those ones up in the Yukon, and it almost doesn't seem feasible. Like, it seems like it's impossible. It's in the winter too.
Yeah, it is. But the cool thing, that's where I grew up. Like, that river that you run along I used to boat. I used to salmon fish on that river as a kid.
Way.
So
so that one's got some deep hooks.
Oh yeah. But that's a whole nother level of racing and running and
infrastructure.
Yeah, because in the winter, and they don't give you, like, most races give you a requirement. You have to wear you have to have a rain jacket and gloves. And well, there they say, no, you have to have a coat with this amount of down in it. You have to have a sleeping bag, not only rated for this temperature, but it has to have this much down in it. Like, so there's a lot of gear and a lot of logistics into that one. So
to get all your support systems up there and all that.
Yeah. And it's like a week-long event. Actually, I think you have 14 days or 13 days to do the 340 miles.
The math that I'm doing in my head right now, this still doesn't make sense, but it never made sense even from the first time I heard about it. So I'm not going to try too hard. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. So I just heard you mention, I don't want to derail us because I want to get back into the planning of it, but I heard you mention that you still want to do a 200-mile race after it.
Yeah.
So to you, I'm just curious how you categorize that run that you did, right? Because you said it's not a race. Like in your head, do you put yourself on that same level as people that have done the 200-mile race, or do you think there's a separation there that makes it different?
You know, some people would say there's no separation. You ran 200 miles.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
But you know what? You go to try to find my time online for that. It's not there. Like, yeah, you know, I ran on my Garmin or my Suunto watch, and I know, you know, yeah, it was 204 miles or something like that because I wanted to make sure I went over. But it's on Strava, so it happened. But but it, you know, it's not really official, and that's why to me it's still a goal of mine to run a 200-mile race, and I'm better prepared for it now. Like I'd say, and surprisingly, when I did the death race the first time, after I experienced it the first time and I started training for it the second time, I was almost more scared the second time than I was at first because I knew what I was going to go through.
Right.
You know, this time, looking at it at least right now at the next 200-mile race, it's a completely different. A 200-mile race is not like a 100-mile race. It's not like a 100-kilometer race. It's not like a 50K. It's a whole different. Your body, everything goes through so many highs and so many lows. And they're so extreme. Your highs are incredibly high.
There's so many of them because it's such a long.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, there's so many variables in this. We'll get into it later, but there was so many variables, and weather played a big factor in that.
Right.
Beat me physically, beat me mentally, beat me down pretty hard mentally. And so, but you don't necessarily get that in even a 100K race with like a 24-hour, you know, a 24-hour, even a 30-hour limit. It just doesn't happen because your body's not that fatigued. Like there was times when my body was completely, utterly thundered. We're walking up a hill in like pouring down rain. I have never been in rain that hard. And it's pitch black. You couldn't see I couldn't stretch out your hand like this, and I couldn't see my hand. Literally, it was raining that hard. And it's like rocks and mud and shit is running down the road at us. And we're going up the hill, and my wife has to meet us at the top of this road at the next transition area. And I'm like, I wonder if my wife is going to be able to make it up this road. I wonder if the road is going to be here when we get up there.
Wow.
So then I start mentally preparing. Okay, when I get up there, if she can't make it there, because we went up there and had to do a 5K loop, and then she was meeting me there. Like if she can't make it there, I have to go back down this 8 kilometers back to the highway where she can get to me. And that's what
you're thinking about while you're just trying to.
I'm already mentally preparing myself. Okay, another hour of this. After I think I'm done, I got another hour to get back down to the highway. Wow. But those are the kind of things you don't experience in a race, like or even in a 24 or 30 hour run or race. So what was before this race? Before this run you just did, what was the longest you'd ever ran? Distance was 100 miles, and I did it in just over 29 hours. Right. So you're going right from, there's no in between the 100 and the 200 mile. 204. But it doesn't make sense. So I did 100 miles in 30 hours, let's say. Yeah. I did 200 miles in 102 hours. Yeah. Go figure. Like there was times like I'm trying to keep track of my pace and stuff as I'm running, and I'm at like the quarter distance and the half distance. I'm like, the time calendar, like my schedule doesn't seem right. Wow. And I mean, there's no way to find that out until you get into it, but I'm curious, knowing what a jump that is, like doubling the distance you've ever done, right? And you know that not only knowing that it's going to double, but knowing the pain and the struggle and the places that you had to go through 100 miles. How was that? And this kind of brings us back to where we were of the infrastructure and the planning. How much of that was weighing on your mind? And we talked so much about last time, and I'm sure we'll talk about this time on the mindset and how important that is to this. How was it because I would imagine usually leading up to the 100 miles and stuff you've done, a lot of the infrastructure is on you as the athlete, right? You need to have your support systems and stuff, but a little bit of that is at least on the race and on the crew. And there's going to be kind of you didn't create the trail, figure it all out, have all the backups of that. Yeah. How was that mentally to go into this, not only knowing that I'm about to take on this challenge that is going to step up in difficulty, this insane amount I can not even be sure of,
also have all these other factors. How was your mindset going into that with this added pressure of organizing it all and working with sponsors and that stuff?
So my plan of attack going into it was to control the things I can and be as prepared as I could for what I can't control.
Right.
So things like the course, things like transition areas, food, nutrition, clothing, all that kind of stuff, I had planned out to a T, and I had amazing support helping me out. My wife crews for me. I had a buddy of mine, Ken Livingston. He was logistics coordinator for me. So that guy was like, he was a godsend, and he was so good at it. And we had a meeting a couple days prior and kind of laid out the plan. This is how it's going to go. This is what we're going to do if we think I'm going to quit. And this is one of the things that we discussed was, I'm not going to quit without stopping for 2 hours. It's not a race. I can stop for as long as I want.
Right.
I said, if I fall and rip my elbow or my face or my knee or whatever open, I'll go to the hospital and get stitches, and I'll come back and I'll keep going. There's no reason to stitches in my leg. Who cares? I can still go with stitches in my leg. If I'm mentally beat down and I'm too sore and I'm too tired and everything hurts, let me sleep for 2 hours before I decide to call it at that point. And so, we had those really tough decisions. And you have the tough discussion about search and rescue and emergency, what's the emergency procedures? So you have to discuss all that so that when I'm out on the trail, I don't have to worry about that. I know Ken has every phone number of everybody out there.
Right.
Sherry has every phone number of everybody out there. Everything is under control. And I've worked with both of them. Well, Sherry's crewed for me at all my ultras, and I know she's more than capable. And I'm at the point now where I trust her, especially when I'm running. I know better than to argue with her anytime. Yeah. But even when I'm running, I don't argue with her very much. Like she tells me, you need to eat this before you leave here. I don't say, well, my stomach hurts. No, I just eat it. I just man up and do it.
That's makes easy.
And again, those are the kind of things that it's not worth stressing over those kind of details.
Right.
We had it in a plan. We had it set out, but then, like we said, there's always stuff that comes up that just throws a huge wrench in it. And it's like, whoa, we didn't expect this.
Yeah. And I'm curious just because I think last time we talked about it, it was a heavy emphasis on that mindset of never quitting, not even discussing quitting. Right. And you did talk about putting the rules in place of, toenails falling off. That's not a reason to quit, right? Sore legs. That's not a reason to quit, those type of things. But I'm wondering, having to go so much further into depth on these discussions that like we just talked about, you have to have that. You can't go out into those races without having those discussions. Was that any more difficult for you to keep that mindset of keeping failure and quitting so far away from you that it's, that's just like, it's like acid, keep that shit away, but having to also take those small bits to do the due diligence to get you there? Was that struggle at all?
I think it was actually less because it wasn't a race.
Right.
So the pressure wasn't on. And I went in with the mindset, and my goal was 120 hours, but I told my wife, I'm like, if it's 130 hours, I'll keep going. Like, I'm not going to stop because I've reached my time limit. Whereas in a race, you kind of have that
hang over you a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that's where now I'll have an advantage at my next 200 mile, because I did this one in 102 hours, which is pretty fast. Like,
holy shit.
And I keep wanting to go and look at the elevation profile of this run and compare it to other races with similar elevation and see where the time was. Like, if I would have run that race at 102 hours, where would have I come in the pack? So, going forward into my 200 mile race, I know I can do 200 miles. Yeah. I know I can do it in 102 hours. We had some horrible conditions in this run. You'll probably have them in any 200 miler at some point, and whether it's heat or snow or something.
And it's so interesting. This was something in that Zach Bitter podcast that I'd never really thought about myself, which is being so outside of this industry. They're saying even the same race year over year. He'd mentioned, I can't remember which one he was referring to. It was one of the big races down in the States, the big long ones. And he was saying even year to year trying to it only matters that year of how you did that year and the times, because he's exactly that. He said in a race that long and that arduous, weather can like you could do the exact same trail 2 different years with the different weather conditions and different things thrown at these athletes, and it could be wildly different times. They said like it was just cool to think of it of you almost can't benchmark year between years, right? And that's just it's kind of sad, because it'd be nice to have that. I know just the more competitive people can get, the more that drives them in there. But it's almost kind of beautiful that it is so arduous, it is so out there that there's nothing you can compare it to. And it's almost just its own isolated, it almost has its own gravity of that one race, that 1 year. It has everything. It's not like year after year, who won the Olympics this year, oh no, there is none. There was that race that year, and it is such a beast of its own that it's almost insulting to even compare it to anything else, right?
And that's kind of the cool thing about this is, and about this run, is that I was the only one that did it.
Yeah.
Nobody's done it there before. Like, and nobody did that with me, did the whole thing with me. So that's a challenge and a feeling of success that only I have.
Yeah.
Like it kind of does something even to your, I don't know, to your psyche or whatever, where it kind of gives you a little bit of a confidence boost. Yeah. And I don't want to say that, definitely not arrogantly, but it's kind of like, nobody else has done that. Nobody will ever do that again.
Right.
It's not like running a 200-mile race where 100 people finish it every year. That's pretty cool, and not to take away from that. But event like this, it was so personal. And while I spent very little time running by myself, it was still a very much my own battle and struggle the whole way, even though I felt supported by people with me all the time.
Yeah. And just to speak on that for a second, because I think you just zoomed past something that I think is really impactful. I think for so long in history, that feeling you talked about of being the only person to ever do this feat, I think that's something that has driven humanity for tens of thousands of years, of that feeling. But for tens of thousands of years, you can never know. You can never know what that was. And it's become so exceedingly rare in today's, not just because people have gotten a lot softer, cultures has gotten to a point where, it's a lot easier to not go and push yourself to that degree, but also so many things have been done. It's so hard to find those things that nobody else has ever done. But I think it's cool, like to see those people. That's why it's so interesting. That's why these, ultramarathon runners like yourself that can come on and people can listen to them. It's cool to pick somebody's brain that has brought themselves to that point. And I just think that is such a huge part of what has gotten us to this point where we can sit here on these mics talking this conversation, is that exact pursuit of what you just spoke about, right?
Well, it's no different than what we were talking about 10 minutes ago. It's these running events that set me up in life.
Yeah.
And, we talked about a culture and what it does to to generationally impacting. It does the same thing. Running 200 miles like this, 100% it changes your life, changes your mindset, changes the way you do things, changes the way you think about challenges you're facing and hard times you're going through.
Right.
It's very, very impactful.
So what were maybe some of the biggest, highs and I know we were going to talk about a lot of highs and lows today, but maybe what was some of the biggest highs and lows from between the point we talked last to the point where you actually got to step foot and start racing? What were some of the biggest hurdles? I think we were talking about like the planning and the logistics last, but what were some of those?
During the event, probably one of the biggest lows was when I couldn't reach summit number 7, I think it was, because of the weather.
Right.
And that was a really tough decision. We were within sight of the peak, and it had been raining for about 6 or 8 hours at that point already. And we were up on the mountain. We were like a kilometer away and soaking wet. And at that point, I had to make the decision to not go to the summit. And it's the bronze summits in Grand Cache. They have the Passport to the Peaks there, where there's 6 bronze summits, I think. And my goal...
What's a bronze summit?
So they have Passport to the Peaks has got 20 or 30 peaks, and they have bronze, silver, and gold. Okay. So bronze are the easiest ones. Some of them are only like a 6-kilometer round trip. Anybody that does hiking can go and do them. They're pretty... The longest one is 21 kilometers, I think.
Okay.
And it's a pretty aggressive peak. But then the silver ones are, 20 kilometers plus, or they're on really poorly marked trails. You need to do some orienteering. And then the gold peaks are either overnight trips or have river crossings in them.
Okay.
So they're like multi-day trips.
Yeah.
So my plan was to run all of the bronze peaks consecutively. Again, something that, as far as I know, has never been done before.
Right.
And I was a kilometer away from finishing it.
And there were 7, and you were on the and that was the 7th one.
I can't. Well, okay. So there's Louis, Flood, Grande, Hamel, Ambler, and Stern. So 6 of them. And I was going up Stern, which was the last one, and I was like a kilometer away from the summit, and it was pouring rain and windy, and I'd been awake for, I don't even know, 3 days must have been, 2 or 3 days. And I was like, yeah, it's not smart.
And how many kilometers do you think you are in at that point?
I was over halfway, so I was over 100 miles into it.
So at that point, you're every step after that 100 miles is the longest you've ever run.
Exactly. Right. And I was with another lady who I just started running with. Right. And I've run with her a couple times, but as far as up there, and I wasn't 100% certain of her abilities. Right. And I knew that, like, we had just only been running together there for maybe 5 or 8 kilometers kind of thing. So a couple hours we've been together. And so I wasn't too sure, like, I didn't know her very well, didn't know her abilities too well. And she didn't know me. And that's when you need some tough guidance, I guess, in a case like that, because, and I knew it from the previous day, 24, 48 hours, that when I get tired and I just fall asleep. But I knew if I was up on that summit and I fell asleep or said, no, I'm going to lay down, I didn't want her to think, okay, Phil's in charge. He said he needs to lay down. He's going to lay down. I would have got hypothermia and died up there if I would have laid down. So I needed somebody, and I didn't know her well enough to know if she would kick me in the ass and say,
that makes
no,
sense.
Phil, that's a dumb idea. You have to keep moving. And I knew that and again, I didn't really know her mental and physical strengths yet either. So it was one of those things. We stood there and we talked about it for a while, and I'm like, you know what? The goal is 200 miles, not 10 mountain summits. Right. If we don't make this one, we can still do 200 miles. And we had kind of made a plan already. Well, we'll when we go through the race, we'll get We had a contingency plan for it. So, so it was one of those kind of things that said, you know what? It's not worth risking it. Let's go back down and we'll go to plan B.
Right. So maybe the weekend race, you started on a Wednesday
morning.
Right. You started Wednesday morning. So maybe even, I imagine you probably took Monday, Tuesday off, right? You had so much prep. So
I think I worked Monday, if I recall correctly.
So then maybe that weekend, was that when, I'm just trying to get, like, because usually with big events, there's a certain time period. Sometimes it's a week before, sometimes it's 2 weeks where everything really ramps up and it's taken the majority of time. When do you think that kicked in?
Most of that was on the weekend before, and that was getting food ready. Right. Because the food you can't prepare too far in advance.
It'll spoil, right?
Yeah.
How many potatoes did you bring up with you?
Actually, not as much.
Okay.
I switched things up. Believe it or not.
Really? Really?
Should. Yeah. I ate a lot of pasta.
Okay.
And I ate lots of everything. Like it was actually.
Yeah, you're going to eat a lot on that trip.
Yeah. And it had really good results with that. It's definitely something I'll do again rather than the potatoes all the time.
Did you bring any beers?
I did, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. I told Sherry, I was like, every daytime aid station, we need beer.
Yeah. So we had beer, we had pasta, maybe a little bit of potatoes, but not as much as you thought.
Pizza, lots of pizza.
Oh, pizza, hey?
Yeah.
What else? Oreos?
Yeah, Oreos. A lady brought me chicken fettuccine. Like, it was like a 9x13 Tupperware dish.
Yeah.
And I ate like half of it, like not exaggerating. I ate at least half of it. And somebody else commented, actually, because there was a bunch of people there, and he commented, he was like, yeah, I was watching you eat that. He's like, I wondered if you were going to stop or just eat it all.
That's so funny.
Because that was actually that was Saturday night, I think, or Saturday morning. I think it was Saturday night.
Right.
Yeah, it was Saturday night.
So in this process of, I swear I'm not going to take us down too big of a tangent here, but it's just something that occurred to me. Over the process of getting into ultra running and having the food portion of it, something that I struggle with to work out is to eat. Like I need somewhat of an empty stomach to be able to work out and not feel like I'm about to puke it up. Was that a skill that you kind of gained over the time? Like, do you get better over time at eating? Or is it just the fact that you're so hungry, your body's so depleted that it just takes it in and processes it much better? Or did you find that it got easier to eat on the run like that when you're in the middle of those huge momentous tasks?
I think it's, you have to train somewhat for it, because not everything not everything agrees with you while
Right,
you're running.
right. You have to figure out what that stuff
But
is.
once you know what you can eat, you won't feel like eating it, but you simply have to force yourself to eat it. And that's what I knew in this, going this long, going the 100, 120 hours.
Yeah.
Like there's no way I can fake my way through that.
Yeah, no shit.
A 24-hour run, 100% you can fake it. You can puke the last 12 hours. And well, my coach did it and she ate like, I can't remember what it was, 27 salt or the shot block things from goo or whatever. And 57 salt tablets is what she ate in the last 12 hours. Like
wow.
just ridiculous, but she finished it. You can do that in a 24 or 30 hour race. 120 hours, you can't. It's impossible. Like you have to feed your body.
Right.
And I knew that. My wife knew that. And so we kind of went into there knowing that there was no other option than but to eat.
Yeah, you're going to
If
force
you don't
it down.
feel like it, too bad. You have to eat it anyways.
Right. Is it just about getting it down when you don't feel about it? Or do you notice like for the first couple kilometers after you eat like half a pan of fettuccine like that, like do you notice a drag on you at all? Or is it just you're so used to it now that it's pretty...
I was very strategic when I ate like that. And so I'd eat like that right before I'd sleep.
Right.
So again, the longest I ever slept, well, one time I slept for an hour, one of the first times. And after that, I only slept for half hour at a time.
Right.
So it kind of gives that food time to settle. But then I'd get up and I'd usually eat again before I'd go. Right. But you kind of eat smaller portions. And I made an effort to eat continually. So basically always be eating something.
Yeah.
Because I knew that was the only way. And it seemed like that almost kept my stomach more active, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And it didn't like I never had any stomach issues.
Oh, that's good. And I think, just putting my science hat on at the moment, I know a lot of time when your body gets into that state of shock and it's just okay, what the fuck is this guy doing to me? I'm in emergency mode. There's a crisis. I need to do this. Sometimes it'll shut down those stuff like digestive processes to be able to feed more energy. It's kind of a fight or flight response. So probably keeping yourself eating kind of told your body, okay, we can't shut this down. This is a long haul, and obviously all that training that is teaching it that this is what it's coming. That's just interesting because I think if you hopped into it without that, your body you probably wouldn't even be able to process it. And that's probably what a lot of those stomach issues are for people.
And that's why I always tell people that's why you have to train and do long runs. You have to train that.
Right.
One thing I did learn, which is very interesting on this run, is when I would get behind, and I don't know, I'm not enough of a scientist to understand it. Maybe it just applies to me. Maybe it doesn't apply to everybody.
Yeah.
But when I would get behind in eating, like I'd get hungry, that's always a bad sign. Because I'm hungry. I'm behind. I need to stay on top of that. If I would eat something then, it's like your stomach just goes, and it's like it digests it too fast, and then you get kind of sick. You just kind of feel like shit. Like you're just like, ugh.
So you just want to not let yourself get to that point.
Well, that's the key. But it must have been about mile 80, I think. So like 2 days in, probably 2 days in, I discovered that if I got to that point, I drink a whole bunch of water. And it's like having all that water in my stomach as soon as and I drink like I come to a creek or something and I just drink and like almost till I got a gut ache.
Yeah.
And then I would just walk for a little bit and then I could eat. And it's like, because that water was in there and then I added the food, it's like my stomach didn't like overreact and it just digested it normally. And,
interesting.
And I remember telling Sherry that actually at a transition. I was like, I figured something out. This is what works.
It's funny how much you're figuring it out on the fly, even though you put so much effort into all the predicting and the experimenting, all that stuff. Still, you're figuring stuff out on the fly, and that's kind of what keeps that sport fresh, I bet. And interesting. Did you have the bacon for the summit peaks?
Oh yeah, I went through a whole pound of bacon, which surprisingly wasn't as much as I thought I might actually run out. But it's one of those things. I had lots of food and different kinds of food, so a big variety of it.
Nice.
And bacon is one of those things that for me is kind of more of a treat. Like it's when you're feeling happy and I want some bacon, and then you have some bacon. But when you're just hungry and you feel like, well, I got to eat something. Yeah, I don't typically go to bacon. I go to the pasta or whatever. But there was some legs that were really long and I came in and I was out of food. Like there was nothing left. So Sherry was always impressed with me when that happened.
Yeah, when you actually finished it, she wasn't forcing you to finish it.
Yeah.
Was there anything, so that weekend when you're prepping all the food, I think we mentioned pasta, potatoes, Oreos, bacon, I'm sure you mentioned anything else that was a major staple that you had prepared?
I did pizza, actually.
Right, pizza. You mentioned pizza. So
yeah. So, and that was, again, one of the transitions. We were really close to Grand Cache. Mm-hmm. And I did an out and back. That was, again, plan B. So I went out along the river. I can't remember what I did, 8K out or 10K, 11K out, I think. And then on the way back, when I was about half an hour away, I called Sherry and I'm like, I'm an hour out. So she ordered pizza in Grand Cache, and cheese is not a good thing.
Right.
So she ordered it with half cheese on it, like just half of the cheese.
Yeah.
And and so then that was there when I got it.
Oh.
And it was like,
is that the best pizza you've ever had?
Yeah. And it was good pizza too, man. It was like an inch thick and like meat, and a little bit of cheese and a beer. Oh. And then I just crawled in the back of the car and slept. It was just like, it was heaven.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. So then the weekend was lots of the food prep.
Yeah.
You kind of had that already. You said you worked Monday, then kind of Tuesday rolls around, you're running the next day. What does Tuesday look like when and I'm curious about the actual day-to-day of what you had to get ready, but also your mindset at that point.
Well, so interestingly, by about Tuesday, I kind of forgot about myself. That's when we had everything was planned and ready.
Right. Going over logistics.
Tuesday, we went down to Grand Cache, and that's when I drove Sherry to all the transition areas. I had written up documents of every transition area and what we wanted.
Yeah.
One thing we did differently from 100-mile races is typically, and my other alters is typically I have at each transition, I say, okay, I want this food, this clothing. I'm getting ready to go up a mountain, or this is going to be in the evening. I need to have my leggings, and I need a long sleeve shirt, and I need a bigger jacket. But this thing, especially day 2 and 3 and 4, I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't know what time of day it's going to be at that transition. Right. So we kind of went into it with bringing everything because, and even same thing, Sherry didn't know what I would be hungry for, or it was kind of more by the time of day. If it was going into the evening or a nighttime transition, she'd try to bring soup. Like I had chicken and rice soup, and actually we ran out of that. I don't know how that worked, but anyways, we did. So a lady up in Fort St. John, in Grand Prairie here, Sherry called her and is like, can you make some chicken and rice soup? This is how you make it.
Yeah.
And so then she actually made a bunch of this and brought it down to Grand Cache for us.
Yeah, it takes a village.
That's the way the race went. Like that's just the way the whole event was.
I think that's the only way you can do an event like that, is to just figure shit out on the fly.
I admire the people that run these things solo, like, and I say solo, I mean like with no crew, like with drop bags.
When you told me, because I re-listened to our conversation last time, I didn't even understand. I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know they'd let you do that.
I want to do it sometime.
You think?
I don't know if I'll that might be my first DNF is when I try to do it by myself. That might be the time I finally fail. But like it's a whole nother element to racing and running when you are doing it by yourself.
Right.
And there's obviously race coordinators and volunteers there to help you, but you don't have a crew person telling you, here, you need to eat this, or here, remember to do this. Because, there, even in 200-mile races, there's people that don't have support, and your mind is not right. So that is wild. Yeah.
That blows my mind. So you take Sherry to all the transition stations, you're getting that kind of stuff, probably last minute logistics, double checking all your stuff. Then do you stay over that night? Like in Grand Cache?
Yeah. So we went down there Tuesday, we drove around. Of course, we had pacers running with us on most legs.
Right.
So Ken, again, bless his heart, the most amazing guy in the world.
Yeah.
He made up these signs that we stuck out on the road and kind of where all the transition areas, so people could find it and knew where to go. So we set all that up, and we were done by, I'm going to say like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. So we just kind of chilled. And of course there was a film crew that was documenting the whole run.
Right.
So we met up with them kind of for a planning meeting there, in the evening, kind of again, to kind of strategize on the event and what they wanted to do and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Some final planning there. And then I don't remember what we did in the evening, honestly, but we didn't it wasn't a big panic. There wasn't a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
We did, I can't remember how we picked this hotel. Anyways, it was kind of a little truck stop of a hotel, but it turned out to be perfect because it was actually a motel, like with the doors out. And so, and then when we went to register, we were like, oh, and I'm like, well, I'm not staying there. So. But it actually was perfect because we got a ground level room. So Sherry could back the car right up to the hotel room door and open the trunk of the car and throw stuff in. And so there was not going up and down elevators 15 times and that kind of nonsense. So that kind of, again, it worked out perfect. Like we were just in a really, really good mindset.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good state. We were prepared. Like everything was ready. I didn't feel like, oh crap, I forgot this or I forgot that. Everything was good.
And so you had people running with you most of the legs, you said.
Yeah.
How many different people do you think ran with you over that whole time?
I had 17 different
17,
people.
wow.
Yeah.
And that's ranging from people you probably run with all the time to, like you said, maybe some of the people that you're just kind of getting to know a little bit at that level in the moment.
Yeah, my high school volleyball coach.
There you go.
Came and ran with me from Vanderhoof, BC. He actually sponsored a leg of the run.
That's awesome.
I had a guy from Sherwood Park. Trying to think of where I had a lady from Fort St. John come down.
Cool.
I had a lady from Fairview come down.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple guys from Edmonton came out to run with me. So it was, and that too was also a big surprise of how well that went.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned it on the last episode too, is I was concerned about pacers because they wouldn't be in the same mental state that I was,
especially once you're over 100 miles. Like,
when in a race, you see other people, you see other athletes that have gone the same distance, the same amount of time as you have.
Yeah.
You see them puking in the bush and you feel like puking. You're
you
like,
can see
okay,
that look in their eye.
You have sympathy for them and you know that, yes, this is normal.
Yeah.
And I was concerned that by having pacers like this, they would all be fresh and I would be dragging my ass and feeling like shit, but they were all happy and cheery. And it was completely opposite. And I actually, a really good mentor of mine, Christine, she told me, she's like, don't think of it that way. She's like, you draw off their energy. She said, you take their energy and use it for yourself.
Right.
She said, that's what pacers do for you. And I'm like, oh yeah.
That's a good way to look at it.
And it was,
I was thinking kind of the same thing of that.
Yeah. And it was phenomenal the way it worked out. Like there was a couple people that ran with me. Daryl, my coach's fiance, he ran with me a couple times. Again, another just incredible athlete. Like you look up to that guy immensely, and he ran I don't know how many times with me. He's one of those guys that definitely brought me to the finish. Like I never could have done it without what he did for me.
Yeah.
And I can't remember where I was going. I got sidetracked with that. And all emotional there for a second.
Yeah.
But so many people, they all brought different elements to the run.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, like, you'd run with them 4 or 5 hours or 6 hours.
Yeah.
And then I knew, oh, so-and-so's here at this leg. And so then I'd be excited to meet up with those people, run with those people. You run with them for 6 or 8 hours. Then it's like, oh, somebody who's here at this time. And then, so it was just like that was kind of like a little high, like every time starting it. And I could tell the same story 17 different times.
There you go. You should have seen what happened on leg one.
Yeah. So Daryl actually ran, he was one of the first pacers that ran with me for a long time. We did a 12-hour leg 3 we did together. Shit. And so we started this, I can't remember. I think I was in front and I was kind of setting the pace a little bit. And then he got in front of me and I'm like, oh, good. I'm like, really had to fart bad. It's a good thing we switched. So he's like, Phil, he's like, it's your run. He's like, you can make the rules. So after that, it was the rule that the leader can fart whenever they want.
Fair enough. I wouldn't even have thought of that rule.
That was well, and it honestly, in a run like that, it's a horrible thing because usually I would lead, just to set the pace if it was single track. But it's always kind of a bad deal if you're the guy in the front. You end up holding it forever, and then you get a gut ache for the next 40 hours. And so that was always, I can't remember I had 2 rules. I can't remember what the other one was. But yeah, that one was the front person can fart whenever they want.
I think that's a fair point.
When you're running 200 miles, you can make whatever rule you want.
Exactly. So then what time? So then Tuesday night, you guys at the motel. It was early Wednesday morning you started, right?
Yeah, 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Oh,
yeah.
So Tuesday night, pretty much.
Yeah. And
I say 4 a.m. is where it switches. Yeah. When people say it's 12:01 is the next day, bullshit. It's 4 o'clock.
Yeah. So we did. we kind of got things organized in the hotel. Like there was a kitchenette and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we kind of got things organized, got my feet all taped up that night, did all that kind of stuff. And then I think we went to bed about 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Got a couple hours in.
Yeah, I tossed a little bit, but I actually did get, of course, we got up at 2 o'clock because of the 3 o'clock start. Actually, I think got up at 1:45 or set my alarm for 1:45. But yeah, I got, I would say 2 or 3 hours of sleep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And then when you do wake up, you drive over there. At that point, once you wake up that morning and you're going to the racetrack, is now everyone just letting you be in your mindset? Nobody's bugging you with logistic stuff. It's just, let's get you and trying to insulate you from that. Or are you still dealing with stuff right up to the moment you step foot?
Everything was organized.
Everything was organized the night before. Yeah. So then that's what I'm curious about. So then as you're stepping up to get started, what kind of stuff's going through your head? Because I oftentimes try and put myself into people's shoes to try and think of what would I think in that situation, but it's so alien to me. I don't even know, because the only sports equivalent I can think of, just like, the butterflies before a hockey game or something. But that's, you're about to go do something. It's like, would I get butterflies before a hockey game I knew was going to last like 3 days? Like, I don't know if that, like, I'm curious. And the fact that you've done these things, it's a different, you know a bit of what you're in for, but I'm just curious, like, what is your mindset? Or is it just, you have too much to even think about to even get to that point?
No, and I think I was very prepared. Like, I was definitely wasn't busy doing things. Like I had, Ken, again, he was organizing the start line, and it was at a kind of a cleared area on the side of the highway, the Death Race 3-4 transition.
Yeah.
So he had a light tower set up because, of course, they were filming this thing.
Right.
So I got to make sure I get this sponsor right. United Rentals donated a light tower for us.
Nice.
So Ken came down there, and he was setting up the light tower when we got there at 2:30 or whatever. Yeah. He was setting up the light tower already. The film crew was there getting all their gear set up. So it was and there was a couple other people there at the start, believe it or not, at 2:30 in the morning. But we kind of had everything planned and ready, and I was in the zone, and I intentionally wanted to start the run by myself, and I wanted to finish it by myself.
I like that.
And I kind of struggled, especially with the finish, because it is such a team effort. But part of it is I on the last leg, I did have pacers, and I sent them ahead, and I should have said something, and this is the first time I've ever voiced this, but I should have said something to the people at the finish line that I hope they cheered as loud for them as they did for me. Yeah. Because those pacers, like, they kept me going. Like, it would not have worked without them. And that was kind of my hope, is that I want them to have their grand entrance and cross the finish line, and Daryl was there. Daryl was one of the guys that ran on the last leg, and that we'll get to that. It was a horrible leg. Oh my God.
Oh man.
But, then I wanted again, just the kind of the mellow, get into the zone and finish it just like I started it, which is, and it was like, it couldn't have been any better, I don't think, in my mind.
And also, I don't know if you were thinking this much at the time, but I would imagine for something that is that personal and that, I don't even know what the right word for it is, but you almost want kind of something we talked about on the last episode, was having the time to decompress after and to think about, because there's always going to be different lessons that come up, different things you learn about yourself, different emotions, different whatever it is that comes up, and just to process that. And I imagine a lot of that happens after the race, but just, I would imagine that'd be good to have just some of the quiet time at the end to just think about what you just accomplished, and to try and put it all into the moment. And just, this is a weird equivalent, but when my sister got married the other day, a couple of our family friends, the Hancocks, they kept saying to her and Liam, make sure a couple times a day you just really just take a moment to really soak it all in, and soak every emotion up and everything you're feeling. And they were just hammering it. They said it to him so many times, and that's really stuck with me since then, of all the moments, because there's probably a lot of moments in life that you don't get that advice, right? Your wedding day is a really easy one. But I imagine it was probably good to have that time to yourself at the end to just feel all those feelings and take all that in, because I think when you have people around you, it's a little bit, I'm sure you're still doing it the whole race. I'm sure you're feeling every second of that race, but I bet you that was good too at the end.
Yeah. And kind of the last leg, honestly, was a lot of that, partly because it was so tough, like mentally tough. Physically, I was beat. we didn't talk very much the last leg. I apologize to my pacers.
Yeah.
I was kind of grumpy, but and that's kind of what that leg was. Like it was, I was just in my head 100%. Like it was just a grind to the finish, because that's how it has to be, that's how it is going to be. It always is like that at the end of a long run.
Does it get a bit animalistic at a certain point?
What do you mean?
Like, it's so alien to me. I'm just really trying to I just imagine if I was at that point where just some combination of just what you're putting your body through, the lack of sleep would just put you in a state where so much of our cognitive abilities, just humans, we're at this point where we can think all these things through. But at a certain point, when you push and you push and you push, you're going back towards more instinctual and more analytic of just thinking that stuff. I would just be curious of where that kind of place takes you, of like what you're thinking. Like, are you even thinking like human-like thoughts of the deeper parts of it, or is it more instinctual of just kind of like one foot in front of the other kind of?
You kind of get almost in a trance, like especially in that last leg. It was very, especially the last 5 or 10 kilometers was on road.
Yeah.
And it was daylight by that time. And I was so.
And you love road.
Oh. And the worst part is Ken said, okay. And he was communicating with Daryl, because again, I can't think at that point.
Yeah.
So him and there was a lot of things that actually happened that they didn't tell me about.
Yeah.
Like people packing my headlamps for me and packing my rain gear because they didn't want me to have any extra weight on me. Yeah. And so Ken had told Daryl that make sure, like, it was an out and back, finishing in Grand Cache. And he said, make sure you're actually like 203 miles, not 200 miles exactly, because when your watch downloads to Strava, if you're at 199.7 miles, like you're going to be pissed and you cannot go back and change that. So we did this out and back. It was like 16K, and I think we had to get 20K in. So we're like, there I was like, okay, we're going to go down this road. I'm kind of looking on Google Maps, trying to find a road. And it's this stupid flat gravel road that was closed. They were doing construction. There's no traffic on it, and it's daylight, and it's just like, and I'm just like so tired, and everything hurt. And I remember running through town. Actually, I was so grumpy. I was running through town, and it was early in the morning. The grass was wet from the dew. And so you're running beside the paved street. So then I'd go onto the pavement and my feet would just hurt. And I'm like, oh. So then I'd get back up on the grass because it was softer. Then my shoes would get all wet. Yeah. So of course, then they get cold again from the dew. And I'm just like, oh my God, like this is so annoying. Yeah. I was so angry. We went down there at Death Race, and actually we were driving past there along that road. And I told Cherry, I'm like, oh my God, I remember running right through there and I was grumpy.
I bet.
Yeah.
So then maybe now that we're at the race itself, what do you think the best way to is? Should you just start leg by leg and just go through and try and remember as best you can? Kind of.
It's all so vivid in my mind. I could probably talk for 102 hours about it.
Well, hey, we got 102 hours. It just so happens we'll have to change batteries a couple times, but hey, we'll go.
We won't drag it on that long.
Hey, I'm here for it if you want to.
You'll have some pain too. So at the start line, we had planned to shoot a bear banger and a flare. Yeah. Just for the hell of it. Yeah. Just to do a big hoorah to start. So, and it hadn't rained at that point yet, but it was early morning. So there was some dew on the grass. And so I think I gave Sherry the flare and I had the bear banger. And so we fired them both off together. And I don't remember which one. I think it was the flare maybe. Didn't launch very far. Like it didn't go up very high. And it actually landed in the grass and started a grass fire. So they all go, I'm like running through. Yeah. Like I go running away. And they're all like running off to the side to go stomp out this grass fire.
That'll look great on film.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that kind of got it off just to a humorous light start. Yeah. And then I ran along the road for a while for about 3 kilometers. So I had Sherry run behind me because it was dark still, or had her drive behind me just with the headlights on. Yeah. So I could be illuminated so I didn't get run over. Yeah. In the first 5K of the run. So that again, it was just an easy trail, easy running, relatively flat. I could just get in and feel it all. And so the film crew was actually set up where I was turning off the highway.
Right.
And so I got up there to the turn off, and there's a big wide turn off there. So I turned to the right, and Sherry kind of pulled in there to turn around and go back in the town. And I all of a sudden didn't have the car headlights behind me.
Right.
And I'm like, holy crap, my headlamp is dead already.
Oh no.
And this was my big one. Like it's a cheap headlamp, but it's crazy bright.
Mhm.
And I don't know if the charging port wasn't working, but I'm like, oh my God. And there's no cell service there. So I turn around, I go running back trying to catch up to Sherry.
Yeah.
And I did catch her before she got turned around all the way. So then changed my headlamps and went to plan B. And but it didn't even phase me. Like it was just, we were prepared for it. We had all the gear
for that exact type of thing, not that specific thing, but that type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the run, that leg I'd never run backwards before. And so it was a little bit of a, cautious, and it was dark too. So I'm kind of just like, and we did actually drive down there the day before just to make sure. So I knew where, because coming the other way, you're going along a bush trail, and all of a sudden it's like, dunk, you're out on a road. And it's like, oh, okay, here we are on a road. But I wasn't sure how to get off the road back into the bush.
Right.
So we went and checked that out. And then it was fun. Like it was the perfect way to start it. I was by myself.
Yeah.
It was that, by now it was, that 4:30 in the morning.
First lights starting to come through.
The birds are singing.
Taking you back to those days hunting. And,
it's just, it was just spectacular.
Yeah.
And we actually got under the train bridge. There's one place you go under the train bridge at the coal mine. And, so I was actually taking a picture of the silhouette of the train trestles up above me. And I could hear a train coming, and I'm like, is that a train or is that the highway? And pretty sure enough, it was a train. So I just managed to get underneath the train tracks, and this train goes over top of me with the lights. And it was just a cool experience. I got some awesome pictures of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know how many times I've run that trail, never seen a train on there, but it was just kind of a cool way to start the run.
Yeah.
And then of course from there it got daylight, and I just felt so good. Like it was just like, this is what I trained for. This was the planning. This is how it was. I just felt spectacular.
You're giving me goosebumps here.
Yeah, it was like, it was just, it was the perfect way to start the run.
Yeah.
And then went into Grand Cache, and then Christine Rollins, this amazing ultra athlete mentor of mine, she was going to run the next leg with me, which was like 6 kilometers.
Right.
And she was just camping down there. She's like, oh yeah, I'll come and run with you a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and she is just the most bubbly, positive, amazing athlete in the world. So I got in my head, I got in the right mind space by this point. And then she joins me and just pumps me up and got me going.
Yeah.
So much more even. And that's, so I talked to her about my concerns, with the pacers, and she was the one that told me, use their energy, feed off their energy.
So you got that tip
during the run.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's like the whole race, like as it went through, it couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
So we did 6K to the other side of Grand Cache, kind of around behind the town. And then we met up with Daryl. And he did the longest leg with me. It was 52 kilometers or 53 kilometers out to Hayden Ridge. Neither one of us had been out there before all the way. So that was actually pretty tough. Like Daryl and I, we love running together in the woods. Like it's so much fun. Him and I are just, we'll see a piece of bear bread on a tree, and it's like, oh, look at that. Yeah. And we're both all excited about it. And so it was just a really, really fun run.
Yeah.
But then we got in 16 kilometers, and we crossed a creek, and it was pretty hot that day.
Right. And just because every time I listen to these stories, I'm always curious about the distance at the time of the story. Yeah. So I'm going to keep asking this question, but how far do you think you were in at this point?
So I would have been 26, 30, about 40 kilometers.
About 40 kilometers
roughly.
Into the run tour.
Yeah.
And how many, what do you call them? Transition stations are there?
I had 15, I believe, but it all got screwed up.
Oh, really?
But wait,
so
more.
I'm just curious because I wanted to see, like, at what point are you hitting the transition? Had you hit one at this point yet?
Oh yeah. So like when I finished the first leg by myself at 20 kilometers, that was the first transition.
God. Then you felt great there.
Yeah.
That's when.
And it was basically just to take off my headlamp, I think I probably ate something or whatever.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Yeah.
And then I did the 6 kilometers with Christine, and then that was another transition.
Right.
Only because from there it was
It's
a long way.
shot,
So
right?
that
And
was
that's
kind
where
of,
Daryl came on for this big long
Yeah.
one, and that's where we're getting into.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
And the reason I started so early is because I wanted to be at that transition. I wanted to start that leg 3 with Daryl early in the morning. Like I wanted to start at like 7 because I knew it was going to be a 12 to 13 hour leg. And so I wanted to get back before it got dark. I didn't want to be pushing dark on new trail because I didn't know if I was going to get lost. They didn't know exactly how long it was going to take me. So it was all kind of, those are the kind of things I had planned, you know, a month before the run or 2 months before the run. So we started going out relatively flat most of the way. We got to the creek at kilometer 16, and that was the last water source that we knew of for sure. So,
and is that where the majority of your water drinking is, from water sources on the trail, just with like a stair pen or what?
You drink through your teeth to filter out the moose.
There you go. There you go.
I'm pretty smart. We probably mentioned it last time. Water should be cold, clear, and flowing. It should be 2 of the 3. Any 2 of the 3, and you're fine, probably. Then you throw common sense in there. Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's cold and clear and stagnant, well, that's a beaver pond potentially. Okay, that's
right.
Or it could be, or it could be coming out of a beaver pond. So you got to be aware of that. But if it's cold and clear, and I drank out of a puddle that was like half an inch deep, but it was freezing cold because there was a little tiny spring in the trail, and I stuck my hand in it, and it was cold. So I'm like, okay, it's coming out of the ground right here someplace. Yeah. But it was like on an old horse trail or a quad trail. And I'm like, I drank from it. I was like ready to die. So I was like, that's what it is. So when we left there, we filled up our packs, and it had to have been midday, probably 11, 12, 1, something like that. So hot. We started climbing, and we climbed and climbed, and it was smoky then that day. And we didn't really know the trail. So that always adds another element to it.
For sure.
And then we still started going. We didn't know exactly how far we were. Of course, now my watch is, I started way back when, didn't know exactly how many kilometers to the summit. So we started getting close to the summit. We're like, we don't have much water. Like, we better start rationing our water. So, and that really takes a toll mentally on the guy. And it was hot. Like, it was warm. And so we got up on the mountain, and I'd never been up on the mountain before. And you get up, they have these mailboxes. So on these peaks, this was actually a silver peak because it's 55 kilometer round trip. And they have a mailbox up there. And so we get up to this clearing, and it's like, oh yeah, right there's the top. And you look for the mailbox, and it kind of goes around this opening in the trees, and there's like no mailbox, and it starts going down. And then you look about a mile over there is another peak. We're like,
a false peak?
Yeah.
Oh, the worst.
And somebody had mentioned it and told us there was a false peak on it, but I thought there was another one like a couple hundred yards earlier that we'd gone through. So no. And I was like, okay, no. And this is where you start getting into your training mindset, because my feet, I was starting to get hot spots on my feet then. And I'm like, no. I told Daryl, because my plan was to get to the summit and sit there and fix my feet and do that kind of stuff. And so when I saw I was that far away, I told Daryl, I'm like, nope, I got to stop and fix my feet. So we stopped right there, fixed my feet, and then went to the summit. And we sat there probably 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, and ate and didn't drink very much. Of course, we didn't have much water, but turned around and headed back down. And we were dry. Like, and again, I have a bladder in my pack, so you can't tell exactly how much water is in there. And when I run out, it's a big mental thing. Like, as long as I know I have water,
when you feel that little bit of jiggle.
Yeah. Or if I drink from it and I can still, I still got some. But as soon as it goes and it dry locks, then it's like, oh my God, I don't have any water. So I didn't want to drain it.
Right.
But then coming down is when I found that little puddle. Like, it was like, and Daryl was ahead of me, and I'm just like, I'm wanting to stay ahead of my water, but I'm like, I'm drinking from this thing. So I stopped and drank very slowly so I didn't suck up dirt. But it was cold and clear, so it was obviously good water. So then we the rest of the trail back, of course, we were beat. Like that leg was tough on me because of the heat and the sun and the smoke, not drinking enough water. And at that point, I had ate everything on that leg. Like no food, probably 5 or 10K out. I think I had like some nuts and trail mix. Actually, that's one thing I did start was nuts and craisins is what I ate a lot of actually. So that was all I had left was this trail mix I had. And again, it wasn't really a low point, but we were just kind of plodding along. The trail just seems to go forever at the end of that leg. And Daryl and I didn't realize this after the fact, is Daryl was actually hurting pretty bad too. His stomach was bothering him.
Yeah.
But he didn't tell me, did not ever
I never mention it. Hey,
no, never waited for him. He was always right there with me and kept me going too.
Yeah.
So then it was, we got in, I don't know, 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And my pack had rubbed on my back.
Oh no.
And I've never usually right along my spine, I get a little spot, probably 2-inch square. That's, about right in the middle of my back, but it's usually 24 hours in, it's a long ways in.
Yeah.
Or not quite 20 hours in. But I had this thing and I changed my shirt and Sherry's like, oh my God. And she tried to then she's like, oh, we should do something. So I had a rub spot about 2 inches wide the whole way, pretty much from one side, right here on my one side, the whole way around my back to the same place on the other side.
Oh,
so
handle to handle.
Yeah, halfway around my back from my pack rubbing there. So she put tape on it and just put tape the whole way around me there to keep it from rubbing. And that didn't stay on very long. She used KT tape, I think, and it didn't stick very good. So then later on we put that P tape. And that just stayed.
Stuck right on. Yeah, I find that KT tape, unless you have that KT glue spray, the tape don't stay on too good.
Yeah, that P tape is amazing stuff.
That's good stuff.
Oh, yeah. So then so that was the end of that leg. The next leg, I had Candace and Taya, which is a mother and daughter. And the daughter, she's 15 or something like that. Crazy fast. She's the fastest kid in her school. Yeah. And she's all energetic. She's again, just high energy, super fun. Yeah. And so from there we went up Ambler Mountain and it's just a big hill. And I don't know why, I've taken my 13-year-old daughter up it.
Yeah.
It's it's a steady climb. It's all a climb, but it wasn't that bad. But on that run, it just beat me. And I think it was probably from the heat during the day. Right. Of course, now we're in the evening. I think it was starting to, we were up at the top, I guess, by dusk. But and even now mentally, it just felt like I had a 50-pound pack on my back. Yeah. It felt like I was just packing something huge up that mountain.
You're drudging at that point.
Yeah.
And again, sorry, I'm going to ask you this a million times. At that point, how far in do you think you are?
So we have 50, 60, 75. We're probably 75 kilometers at the start of that run or that leg. And I should have written that down. I think it's 20, 25. Yeah, about 75.
Gotcha.
And that was about, must have been about 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night is when we started that.
And that'd be Wednesday night?
Yeah, Wednesday night.
Gotcha.
So when we got up to the top, we sat down there and I ate some more. And then we didn't waste much time there, did a Facebook Live and then turned around and started down. And going down felt really good. We just whistled down the hill and then went through the same transition area, but didn't stop, went out to the highway. And we kind of changed it then because I was going to run along the death race course, which goes through a residential area down there and there's lots of dogs. And so I was kind of worried about that. And so Sherry was going to meet us at, I think it's Victor Lake or Grand Cache Lake, one of those lakes. There's a little beach there. And she was going to meet us there and drive behind us again, just in case.
Had to throw a stake out or something.
Yeah. Bait the dogs for us.
Yeah.
But then we decided, you know what, rather than doing that, because it's just on a gravel road, I'm like, let's just run along the ditch on the highway. Like, who cares? My thing, I can do whatever I want. So we just went along the road, did that. And it was, felt good. And then we went back into the bush where the death race course goes into the bush, did the single track over to the train yard, back out to the highway to the trailhead where you start up Flood Mountain. And that's where Sherry was waiting for us again. That was the next transition. That was another pretty quick transition. And that was, I think, about I'm going to say midnight, maybe 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
It wasn't the fettuccine transition?
No. Fettuccine was way later.
Okay. We'll get there. I'm just excited. I've been thinking about that ever since you mentioned it.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And so from there, you go up Flood Mountain, and it's about 8 or 9 kilometers, and it is all uphill.
Ooh.
Like, not crazy steep. Like on fresh legs, I could probably run the majority of it. There's a couple pretty steep pulls I couldn't, but the good athletes, they can for sure. And it was just a grind, and by then the newness had worn off, and I was kind of in that place, and I started falling asleep, and I'm like, I should not be falling asleep.
And had you slept yet at all?
No, but this was, by now it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning, or
so you've almost been going 24 hours of zero sleep.
But I have done 30 hours with no issues staying awake. So I was kind of a little bit surprised by it. Yeah. And so I was like closing my eyes, and it's on a quad trail, and Candace and Taya were in front of me, and they had music going on a speaker, and they were talking lots, and I was just behind them in my own zone, just following them. Yeah. And so I just close my eyes and I take 5 steps at a time. And I did that lots actually on that run. I closed my eyes for 5 steps, then I'd open it. And then I finally like, I should like, this is like, I still got like 5K to get to the summit. Like, this is dumb. Like, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, still got lots of time to go. Yeah. So I stopped and got some caffeine, which I'd never actually used in a run. Well, I did once in a training run just to see how it would work. Right. But I'd never taken it actually to wake myself up.
Right. Like in pill form? Or?
Yeah. It's caffeine tablets. And they're, I think, 200 milligram, which is equivalent
strong coffee.
Yeah. It's equivalent to a Tim Hortons medium coffee, I think is what it is. So I took 2 of those, and man, 15 minutes, and I'm just like, dunk, and I'm like wide awake. Yeah. It just snapped me right out of it. I'm like, oh, caffeine is going to be my friend.
All right. Yeah. Put that in the old mental bank for later.
Yeah. So then we got up to the top, and again, there's the course and the people that are listening that know the course, you can go up, they call it Stairway to Hell, which is this single track. It just goes straight up. It's miserable. Yeah. And usually the death race course goes up that way to the summit and then comes down the quad trail. Right. So I'm like, screw the Stairway to Hell. We're going to go up the quad trail and come back down. Why make it harder? We're doing the distance. Right. Mm-hmm. So we started going up that, and it was pretty hard on me there. Right. So Taya was struggling too with her stomach, and everybody was kind of fighting a bit there. So in our own way, not amongst ourselves. Yeah. But so then we got to the summit. Taya had to tape her shoe. She had a blister. Somebody did. I can't remember. I wasn't feeling very good. Tried taking some more caffeine, and it wasn't working with me. Yeah. We were there, did another Facebook Live video, and then started back down the quad trail. And there, it's runnable. So we tried to run that as best we could. Yeah. Got back to the intersection where the Stairway to Hell goes, and I was like, I'm tired. I got to sleep. So from there, it goes down to what they call Slugfest and Bum Slide, and they really are that. It's single track, very technical, incredibly
Bum
steep.
Slide. I like that one.
No, it's not as much fun as it sounds. So I'm like, I need to sleep. I told Candace, I'm like, give me 15 minutes. So I just laid down on the grass, and I was like out cold instantly, and it was the most amazing sleep in the world.
How's that wake up though?
It wasn't bad.
Really?
No. And I discovered later on, the first time I slept for an hour, that an hour was too long. Like it took me
need that NASA nap.
Yeah. It took me like half an hour to get woken up again and going. But that 15-minute, I called them ditch naps. Yeah. It was perfect. So then it was starting to get daylight when we left from there, and which was really good going through that Slugfest and Bum Slide. Some people, again, that know the course, that have been logged in there, and it's a very, very technical, lots of mud and wet and gross. Yeah. Honestly, I thought the logging block made it better. You can kind of see around. It gives you something to look at other than just buck brush and scrub trees. So then we made it through there, got back onto the road. There's an old gravel road, kind of like a quad trail that goes up Grand. And I actually had an interview with one of the radio stations in town.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She was like, I want to get live updates every morning between 5 and 10, either 5 and 7 or something like that is when she was on air. Yeah. So she gave me your cell number. She's like, text me. And then she's like, I'll call you from the studio then. Yeah. So it was like a godsend, because I told her, I'm like, I don't know when I'll have cell service or where I'll be. So it might be 9 o'clock before I call you, or it might be 5 o'clock. Just whenever I get it, I'll call you. And it just so happened that I was going up the road into Grande again on a stupid gravel road. And I was fighting. Like, it was so horrible. Mm-hmm. But to talk to her and kind of explain how you're feeling, it just snapped me right out of it. Like, it was perfect, just what I needed.
Yeah.
So then we went up over Grande. Not too eventful, got back down to the bottom, and it's really steep going down Grande.
Oh yeah.
And again, it must have been, I'm going to say it must have been about 8 or 9 in the morning when I got to Grande, got to back into the cemetery where our transition area was. And so I text Sherry from the top, and I'm like, I need to sleep when I get there.
Yeah. So
she had the cot set up, and again, we had planned it. I said, when I need to sleep, I want to come in and sleep. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want excitement. I don't want music. I just want to come in and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Unless I want something to eat. Like, then that's kind of the one and only thing. So I think that one, I don't know if I even ate before that. I might have just gone right to sleep.
Sleep was a priority on that one. Yeah.
And of course, it was fairly early in the morning, and I was in the sunshine and a big warm sleeping bag on me. I was just so nice to sleep. It was like the best sleep ever. Woke up, I think it was only half an hour there. Maybe it was an hour. I think it was only half hour. And just the best sleep in the world. Got up and I was like 100% refreshed.
Yeah.
And then, so by that time I must have been, so I got to go by the legs. So 20, 25, 55 is 80, 100, must have been about 120K in.
Whew.
Yeah, that's roughly right. 120K in. And then I was back on my first leg that I ran by myself. I was just running it the other way. So that was leg 3 of the death race.
Right.
And I had a buddy of mine, Conway from Edmonton, who I'd run with actually I met him at Sinister when I ran my 100-mile race.
Right.
And another guy that I had just met here while you and I ran with him, Jason.
Jason, yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Teacher, I really enjoyed that run. That
and so again,
really nice guy.
A new guy that I didn't really know that well. And him and Conway just talk. So it was like perfect, because I'm like pretty much done talking.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'll just listen, you guys talk. So, and they had never met each other. So they had tons of stuff to talk about. So, and it was interesting. Like, they had interesting conversations.
Yeah, he was a very interesting guy. I really enjoyed
I just listened. And that was kind of a different dynamic from some of the other groups, because they didn't know each other, but they hit it off right away and they had lots to talk about. So they just talked. And you know, Conway was behind me most of the time and Jason was in front of me. So Conway and I talked some if Jason was up too far ahead, because of course and Conway's a pretty cool guy to talk with too. Very interesting and personal trainer and fitness stuff. So very, very interesting and smart guy to talk with. But a neat, so it was just that leg is mostly downhill. So it was just a fun, you know, in the morning, easy run. So that was 20 kilometers. So then we start in, over Hamel was 160 kilometers. That was my halfway point. So it must have been, I guess there I must have been about 135 kilometers or something.
And Hamel's the one, if people listen to the first episode, that's where you had your bear encounter, right?
Yes.
Right. So was that in your head at all at that point of knowing you're coming up to that? Was that something, because I guess I haven't even asked you. I was curious to ask you about that, knowing, because on the first episode we talked about that you're going to have to run by it twice, I think you said, on this run. Yeah. And I was curious, were you too tired to even think of that at that point, or was that in your head at all?
I don't think it was. Of course, it was in my head. It's always in my head when I'm there.
Wherever
when I see that mountain, it's in my head.
Yeah.
I don't really remember too much. Like, I don't think Conway and I really talked about it too much going up there. And everybody's very respectful about it. And they don't always ask about it even.
Right. Just if you want to bring it up, you'll bring it up kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when I went up there, again, it must have been probably close to noon when I got up there. So it was nice and daylight or whatever. And I was feeling pretty good climbing up there.
Yeah.
And it was just Conway and I. Jason only did that 20-kilometer leg with us.
Yeah.
And so just Conway and I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure just the two of us.
Yeah.
And there's an Inukshuk there, so it always falls over in the winter. So I built that again and whatever, and just kind of went on. But it was nothing. It was good that time.
That's good.
So then we went up over Hamel. That's the highest summit.
Right.
And down the other side. And it was just a beautiful day. It was so nice.
Yeah.
And I got to try to think. It must have been later in the day, actually, because it was almost getting dark when I got to the other side. And that was the halfway point. When I went to bed, it was dusk. And that's the time I slept an hour. And they set up, because it was cooler, they set up a little tent, put the cot in there. And I slept there for an hour. And then it was dark when I got up. It was about 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I ate a bunch there because that was, again, a really long leg, 25K or something, 30K.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember how many hours it was.
I'm curious about when you go to sleep and you wake up. I've just heard other people talk. I think with the one that always sticks out in my mind is that Courtney Dauwalter, her talking about when she won that. I can't remember which one that she won by that huge margin. She talked about her sleep and when she would wake up, her fear of how long was it, and asking whoever's around her. Did you find that you were curious? I guess maybe you didn't have the race aspect, so it was less so that if it didn't really matter how long you slept, or did you tell them, I want this much sleep, don't wake me up for this one, and when you're getting woken up, that's the amount?
And again, I think that's one of the perks of having a crew and, having Sherry right there, because we'd kind of talk about it and I'd say, okay, no, I want half an hour. I want an hour. Mm-hmm. Those were and I think that one was my only time that I slept for an hour.
Yeah.
Mostly because I had just come over a big leg. I'd been going 40 some hours by that point, because it's about 11 o'clock and it would have been 44 hours at that point. And I'd done 100 miles in 44 hours.
Right.
So how is this 200 mile going to take me 100 hours, 120 hours? That's kind of, at this point, is what's going through my head now. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So, but you slow down. So, when I got up, it was just kind of starting to sprinkle then. Mm. And so then I had Christine with me again, Christine Rollins, who did the second leg with me.
Right. That gave you the advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Again, just an amazing lady. And so I'd never been up Ambler Mountain before. That was my first time. Pitch black, kind of rainy off and on, a little bit of kind of foggy. It had rained some throughout the night, not lots, but just enough to make the ground wet and a little bit slippery. And so that was a pretty cool mountain. Got up there and got a nosebleed at the summit. I'm like, really? I never, ever get nosebleeds. Yeah. And then here we go. I'm like, oh, geez. So I think we were up there about 1:30 in the morning, something like that.
Yeah.
So we again sat there and ate a little bit at the summit. That's kind of what you do at the summit of the mountains. You always stop and eat a bit.
Yeah.
And
some bacon.
Yeah, eat some bacon and potatoes actually I had there. I dumped them on the ground. I remember that. And I still ate them.
Yeah.
But so then we turned around, went back down to the same transition area, and then down the Beaver Dam Road. And that's another road I just hate. It's all gravel and big rocks, like jagged rocks. And I was getting pretty tired again. And so I actually, it's a gravel road and it's kind of crowned and graded down. And a lot of these back bush roads where they grade the ditch, there's kind of another big hump of dirt, like at the end of the blade from the ditch.
Yeah.
And it was kind of sprinkling a little bit again. And I was just so tired. I told Christina, I got to sleep. I need 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I laid down in the ditch, and this is where the ditch nap started. Yeah. So I laid down perpendicular to the road with my butt right in the lowest spot.
Yeah.
And my back kind of up on the shoulder of the road, my head right on the road. And then my legs were up on this berm that the grader had plowed. Oh man.
Which probably is perfect just to elevate your legs and get that blood flowing back. And
it was so comfortable. There was no rocks digging into my back. 10 minutes I was actually laying under a tree so I didn't get any rain drips on me. I think I was 10 minutes there maybe.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal nap.
Yeah.
And so then we started going again. And then about that time, shortly after we got going, we had another phone call with the radio station again. So I think it was about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And then down the Beaver Dam Road to the highway, along the highway into town. And it's just, again, road. And then hit the Sulphur Gates Road. And Sherry and Ken were waiting at kilometer 5 on the Sulphur Gates Road where the trailhead starts up to Stern. And by this time it had started raining, kind of starting to sprinkle pretty good. And I was just, a lot of it is uphill going on that road. And it's just, oh, and that's when I really started sleeping, and I closed my eyes. And Christine like, Phil, are you still with me? Phil, are you coming with me? And I tried to like drift into the ditch. So again, but just super encouraging. She didn't try to wake me up necessarily, and it was flat road. There wasn't a pothole or a rock on it, so it like not going to trip. So I just close my eyes and walk, and then go, okay, still going, still moving, readjust. So got to the transition there, and they had the tent set up, and so I went in and slept there again. That must have been, I'm going to say about noon, maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And so I would have been about 100 miles. So that's 60 kilometers or 160, probably 180 kilometers at that point.
Wow.
190.
That doesn't even compute in my head for a running distance.
Yeah. And so then they had the tent set up. Like we had a big, like a 16 by 16, 10 by
like
10
an event tent.
Yeah. Which was a godsend. Somebody lent us.
Yeah.
And so when I woke up, the tent that I was sleeping in was like a little 2-man tent. I was soaked. Not I wasn't, but the tent was soaked. My sleeping bag was soaked. It was pouring rain. So we're like, oh my God, what do we do? And this was kind of the first big, okay, Ken and I talked, and Sherry and I, what are we going to do? And so the plan from there was to go up the trailhead to Stern, which is about 6 or 7 kilometers, and then just backtrack about 1 kilometer and go out towards Lightning Ridge. And then go out about another 10 or 12 kilometers, and then it loops down to the river, and then you come back up the Kavass Flats trail. Like we actually go out to Kavass Flats, but up over the mountain. And it's a 34 kilometer loop. That was the original plan. And so we decided that because of the weather, and it was like pouring, like downpour.
Yeah.
And it's pretty high elevation there. Like a lot of it, like you go about 5 kilometers and you're up on top, and then you're pretty much in like tree line or above tree line for quite a ways.
Right.
So we thought, well, I don't want to get 15 kilometers out there and still be above tree line and get soaking wet, and then have to still do another 20 kilometers back along the river. And you can't, there's no access there. It's horseback. Like you can't quad. You can hike, but you can't, there's no other way to get in there.
Right.
And so we said, okay, we'll go up. The plan was I'd go up Stern, come back down to this transition, and then go out to Kavass Flats along the river, and then come back in again, just to eliminate that one really remote stretch.
Right.
So that's when we went up to Stern and got there with Helen. And that was, like I say, that was definitely one of the tough points. The first really tough point. And
so your mentality up until then was pretty strong. It was it was more the physical, the tired and that, but you're working through that. You were making
and very
the plans.
Mentally, I was still very strong up to that point. And that was kind of, I think that was probably the first knock that, if you weren't mentally prepared, could really knock you off your game. Yeah. But then, Helen and I talked, and again, maybe that's why Helen was there, was for her mental strength. Yeah. And that's what she said, what, your goal is to run 200 miles, not do 10 mountain summits, because now I'm down to 9 summits. Yeah. And she said, you're not here to do 10 summits, you're here to do 200 miles.
And also for everyone that isn't an ultra runner, getting a kilometer from the time, I'd count that, but I know you guys wouldn't.
No. Oh, it is so close. Like you're right there. Yeah. So we came back down, and by this time it's like pouring rain. Like,
and how's your mentality? Was it in that moment once you made the decision? Was it the anticipation of having to make the decision that was really wearing on you? And once you had made it, you were good again, or was it once you had made the decision, you lost that summit? How quickly did you bounce back, or was that kind of a drag where it took you longer to get out of that funk?
No, it definitely took me a while to get out of that funk, and the trail in there is not very nice. Like it's single track, but it's not one of my favorite trails. Right. Like it's pretty closed in. You can't really see anything. And it was pouring rain, and we're soaking wet. Yeah. It just wasn't
pretty miserable.
It was pretty miserable. Yeah. And we're coming back down, and we got to tell the crew that we didn't make the summit. That's, that's what's weighing on you. So then we got back. I don't think we stopped really very much at all at the transition, maybe grabbed some food or whatever, and then left, and then went out to Kavass. And that's when it really started to rain. Like we were talking.
I thought it was raining before.
Oh, it was, but it was like buckets and sheets of rain coming down. And at one point we're like, okay, it can't rain this long. Like, let's just stand under this big spruce tree and wait a little bit. So we got under there. We're standing there for a minute or two, and I'm like, why am I standing here? I should be sleeping. So I pulled out my survival blanket and I broke off some branches under the spruce tree and I laid there and I told Helen, like, give me 10 minutes or when the rain stops.
Yeah.
But like the road had like 6 inches of water on it, like standing on it.
Holy shit.
It was gross. So we went out and it's kind of a slippery, muddy road. Like a lot of horses use it. And so it's pretty hard going. Like it's tough running and tough just to get through it. Not too many hills on it. It's relatively flat for the most part. So we did that out. And then on the way back, I got cell service and I told Sherry, I'm like, I need rain gear. Like this is not going to work. Like I had a running raincoat, but I'm like, I need rain gear. Yeah. And actually, no, I think it was at the transition when I came down from Stern is when I told her I need to have real rain gear. Yeah. So, and then she was going to have pizza for me when we got back. So I knew that was there. Yeah. And rain gear.
That picks you up a little bit.
Yeah. And so it was just kind of a good pick me up. Yeah. And it, kind of gets you driven to the finish. So when we got through that, got back to the transition, they had pizza there. Oh, it was amazing. And there was quite a few people there too. I don't remember who all was there, right? But there was quite a few people. And so I ate a bunch of pizza and then I crawled in the car because it was raining so hard. Oh, and then this lady came out. She messaged. How was that? I think she messaged Krista and said, "Hey, I'm a massage therapist. I want to come out and give Phil a massage." I'm like, "Oh, yes." Yeah, so sure. I think she was there after my nap. I can't remember if it was before or after. I think it was after. But she worked on my calves. My calves were really tight and my shoulders were tight. And my neck, I had a crick in my neck. My neck didn't have much movement in it. And so she worked me over pretty good. And it was just like heaven having her there. I bet. Yeah. So then after my nap, there was a group of 3 other ladies, I think. Lori Cardinal from Fort St. John, Terry Robertson from Fairview, and Nadine King from Grand Prairie here. And just a fun group of ladies that I'd never really run with much of them with either any of them very much. So I didn't know them super well. Yeah. But everybody had rain gear. They had ponchos. Sherry went to Home Hardware and got me a Green King raincoat and rain pants. And that was amazing. So then we went back out to the highway on, I don't know what kilometer we're at now. 100, I don't know, we were a long ways in. 200. 200 plus probably. So we were 160, 180, 200, probably 200 or 220. Yeah. And so now we're already thinking with all this rain, we're like, what are the other summits going to be like? So Ken and I were already thinking, and we had heard rumor that maybe the one, the road going up Grand was washed out, which was kind of our egress plan. Like that was an emergency takeout place if I needed it. Right. So I asked Ken, we should look into that and see what we can find out. Maybe we again reroute to avoid those. Because now I've missed one summit, so why do anymore? No. So we just kind of left that as it was. We got back to Beaver Dam Road, started going up Beaver Dam Road, and that's when rain, it was dark now, and lightning, I've got videos of it still on my phone. Wow. Lightning would light up the whole sky, and it was pitch black. We had our headlamps on, but you couldn't see anything because it was raining so hard. So in rain, yeah. And then all of a sudden it would be lightning and thunder, and it would just and you could see everything. Yeah. So it was pretty cool, actually. But I've never seen rain like that. And that's when, as I'm going up there, I'm thinking, I don't know if Sherry can make it up. We've got a Chev Traverse, it's an all-wheel drive car, but I don't know if she can make it up there. Right. And then I'm like, well, she'll probably bring Ken's truck. And I'm like, oh, I can't sleep in Ken's truck. And then I'm just, so all these things start going through my mind, eh? So we got up. By the time we got to the top of Beaver Dam, the rain had kind of subsided. It was drizzling by now. Yeah. And we had a 5-kilometer loop to do there. And so I figured it would take me an hour. So I text Sherry and I said, or maybe I called her. I can't remember if I called her or texted her and said, we'll be back here in an hour. And that's when the next transition was supposed to be right there. And so that road, we went into the bush and on a quad trail, downhill about 2K. And then you come up this road about 2 or 3K back to the transitions, kind of on top again. And I'd never gone on it backwards, let alone in the dark, right? Right. So we weren't too sure exactly where this was, and you couldn't see very far anyways. We could start to see the trees in the skyline because it was starting to get daylight. And no, it wasn't daylight yet. Actually, it was pitch black, but you could see the trees anyways.
Yeah.
And we were like going to like, oh, this must be the top. Nope, there's no vehicles there. And you can kind of see another corner. Oh, no vehicles there. Not pretty soon. Like, oh, here's the transition. They're not here yet. So we're like, oh my God.
And you don't know if they're going to make it either because you know.
Exactly. We didn't know. And there's sketchy cell service in there. So I called Sherry and I'm like, we're here. Where are you? She's like, we're like 1.5 kilometers away. Or no. Yeah. No, she's like, I'm like seriously like a minute away. She's like, I'll be there. Like, you can probably see my lights almost. Yeah. So yeah, she was there in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, I bet you that was a good feeling.
Yeah. But it was kind of a fun, like of course, I'd set a timeline for all of these legs and I'd been beating him. Like most of them, I was ahead of schedule. Really? So by now they were kind of anticipating a little bit. And I can't remember what it was, like an hour shorter on this leg than what I even thought I was going to be. So they weren't really ready for me.
Yeah.
But it all worked out good. And then I had to sleep there again. And then my coach and Amber Livingston, Ken's wife, they ran with me. So by now, like it had rained off and on all night, and there had been a ton of rain up there. So now I had to go back up over Hamel again. And we're thinking, okay, what are we going to do? You know, is it worth going up over the top, getting stuck in a rainstorm? Hamel is a very exposed mountain for quite a ways. And so there was of course, we're trying to figure distance, and I can't compute anything. Yeah. I'd kind of give ideas to Ken, and I'd say, figure this out or whatever, and see. So the one plan, the quad trail goes about 5 kilometers, more or less level, and then it turns to the left and goes up Hamel, or you can turn to the right and it goes down to that there's kind of like a camping area along the highway. And then the plan was, then we just run along the highway. It's like 7 kilometers from there up to the transition, which is where I actually started from. And I'm like, I don't want to run on the highway for 7 kilometers. Yeah. But they figured out all the math. They're like, yeah, okay, it'll work if we do that. And like, well, we'll get to the intersection, see what the weather's like, and then we'll decide if we go up or down. Because then it was pretty early in the morning, I think. Like, I think we actually started with headlamps. And we got to the intersection there, and it was good. Like, it hadn't rained at all, and looked like it was going to get nice. So we went up Hamel, decided to go up and over Hamel, and Hamel is just a grind. Like, it is, so, especially that direction going backwards, it is so steep and big rocks. But I could go up really good. It was going down, like my hip flexor. No, my IT band was giving me grief. And that's one of those things that you can't, it seems like IT issues. You can't work through them. They're just there. And I'm like, yeah, this is a grind. So they were, we were just giving her up the mountain because I knew that coming down was going to be a slow broke. Like it was not going to be a fast trip down the mountain. So we got to the summit and the sun broke out and it was blue sky. Yeah. And then it all closed in and it started pouring rain. And we're like, and we were not quite to the summit yet. And we're like, oh my God, let's get off of this. Yeah. And I told them, I'm like, I'm going to push hard going up because I'm taking my time going down because of my leg. Like, and we started going down and definitely one of the hardest points in the run.
Right.
I didn't know if I was going to make it. I really wasn't too sure. I didn't know if I would actually get off the mountain. There's 10 switchbacks and the wind was blowing right along the switchback. So one way we were going into the wind and the other way we were going against the wind. And I can't remember. I think we'd run into the wind and then we just kind of jogged like downwind then. And it was just like all I could do to run. And I know better than to limp on, you don't want to limp when you have an injury because that just creates a problem somewhere.
You're going to have 6 other injuries stemming from it.
Yeah. I'm just doing my best to try to focus and try to maintain a normal stride and just stretch out and push through it, cry through it. I was crying. It was bad. I was leading actually, Krista and Amber right behind me. And we got down through the switchbacks back into tree line and kind of out of the wind. And it kind of stopped raining a little bit. And and they were getting out more hot packs for their hands.
Yeah.
And I used the end of my pole, my hiking pole, and I would just working it into my leg, just digging in there. And I didn't know, like, I seriously thought that was done. Like, by this point must have been, I don't know, probably 275 kilometers, 250 kilometers in. And I thought, this is where it's going to end. Like, I don't know if I can get down, let alone finish, like, let alone go more. Like, I still had, I think from there, I had 80 kilometers.
Wow.
I think was the mark, and very, very low point for me.
Yeah.
And then that was right about the same place where the bear incident was.
Yeah.
And of course, then I'm already mentally beat because I'm in so much pain, and coming into there, and now all of a sudden it's hit me hard, and I'd worked the knots out of my leg, and it was kind of a little bit flatter right there, so I could go a little bit better. And then I'm like, you know what, I think I can actually do this.
Yeah.
And it was probably a false hope because it was just flat, and with IT bands, it only hurts going downhill for the most part. So I was like, no, I think I can actually do this. Like, I can do this. I'm strong enough to do this. And I just started pumping myself up, and thinking, no, I can do this. I'm going to finish this thing. I'm going to do it. And I remembered the necklace I had in my pack, and we talked about that again on the first episode. And I said, you know what? I'm strong enough to do this. I can do this. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave my necklace here. Like, I don't need it. Like, I'm in it for so long. I've kind of not fought for closure, but I've wished for closure for this thing. It's like, it just won't leave me alone. It's like it, and it's not bringing it up. Like, you and I bring it up doesn't bother me, but it's when I go back there again, it bothers me. And when I get scared in the woods by a noise, and it's that, like, it's frustrating because I can't control it. Conversation with you and I can control it. Doesn't bother me. But it's those times when I actually physically get scared from something that it just annoys the hell out of me.
Trauma don't follow no logical rules.
No, it doesn't. And so I got to that point, and I'm in such a low point, and I'm just crying and bawling, and Krista and Amber, I think, were in front of me, and Krista knew where the spot was. Amber, I don't think, did, but coming up to it, I'm like, I'm going to leave that necklace here because I don't need it. Like, I'm strong enough. Like, I have what it takes to do this. I don't need that crutch anymore. And so we came around the corner right there, and I told Krista, I'm like, I'm going to stop here for a second. And it must have been just like the most forlorn looking situation. I mean, this drab green raincoat and rain pants. It's gray and it's pouring down rain. And I'm kneeling in front of this stupid Inukshuk, and I'm just bawling my eyes out. And I dig a hole, and I put the necklace, dig it out of my pack, and put this necklace in there and build the Inukshuk on top of it again. And I turned around, and Amber and Krista were standing there just crying.
I bet. I was waiting for that. If that was me, I'd be bawling too.
But from there, it was just like a turning point.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, I haven't been out in the woods enough yet really since then to know if that was a mindset, but that's when I learned that I'm strong enough. Like, and I guess that's a lesson that this 200-mile run taught me, is that I really am, like, strong enough physically, mentally, and emotionally. And, we talked earlier about how these kind of things impact your personal life and your professional life as well. 100%. That's the lesson I learned, is that I'm strong enough for this. I can do this.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, it was like such a turning point. The sun came out, it got nice and warm. It didn't rain anymore.
Wow.
And it was, it was just, we had the nicest hike going back down, and, it must have been about, I think it took us 5.5 hours to go over it, actually. So it must have been like early afternoon. And I did stop one more time. I was like, I better stop and have a nap before I get to transition. Otherwise, Sherry will make me sleep.
Yeah.
So I stopped. There was a really grassy spot in the sunshine. So I laid there for about 15 minutes and slept. Got back down to the highway. Now I was back at the starting line.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of people there. It was just a good time again. Had a beer. It wasn't, I was there, I don't know if I was there half an hour maybe or 20 minutes. I was probably there half an hour or so. And I told her, I was like, I'm going to have a nap. Like I need 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I had a really thick, like a camping mat, like a 1/2-inch mat. And so I laid that down, put my feet up on this old log so they were elevated, and just laid back the sun was shining. It was so nice and warm. Of course, I'd been soaking wet for a day and a half now.
Yeah.
So
just finding out what heat feels like again.
Oh yeah. So I just laid there and slept for like 10 minutes and then got up. I felt super good. And that's when Jeremy joined me, my coach from high school, and then Krista and Amber. So again, it was one of those kind of things where Krista and Amber knew each other and they kind of stayed together. And then, Jeremy and I, we just kind of walked together and we had a lot of catching up to do. And so we just visited on our own, which was really cool. And then, so when we started that leg, this is when my body, I think, finally started being impacted, like wearing down physically.
Yeah.
Like it was, so I started going down the highway and it felt like I had an ant biting my back. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And I kind of shrugged my pack a little bit and didn't really bother it much. And then a little bit further and I could kind of feel it again. I'm like, well, that's weird. And I kind of shrug it. And I was like, maybe there was like ants in my shirt so I actually had Jeremy look down my collar, couldn't see anything. I'm like, okay. So, we must have been about 4 or 5 kilometers into the leg then. And I think, man, there's something in my pack. And I'm like, thought, well, maybe it's the like pine needles or dirt or something in my pack, poking my back. So we stopped. I took my pack off, pulled up my shirt, looked at my back. Nothing was on my back. Couldn't find anything in my pack. We're like, what in the world? And so then I'm like, we'll put my pack back on. We start walking. I'm like, well, maybe because I had spare batteries in my pack. And I'm like, well, maybe because of the sweat and the salt and the batteries conducting, maybe it's shocking me. Like, weirdest sensation in the world ever. Like, and it just slowly got worse and worse. And I'd shrug my back, like put my shoulders back. Yeah. And it's like my whole back would just like sparkle, like right where my pack was. Yeah. It was strange. So we finished the leg. That would have been about going into towards the evening by now. Yeah. On Saturday. And we ended at the cemetery. And I think that wasn't where I had the pasta yet. So I wasn't there very long actually, that transition, I don't think. Then a bunch of people joined me on that leg. Christy Stuckelschwager, she joined me. Yasna joined me. And I think Zan as well. And started out on the leg. And so now we're going back out on Death Race leg 1 again, which is that 6-kilometer leg I started with. And my back was like on fire with these, like, it was like, it felt like sparks. Like I could just envision sparks on my back. And so I finally, like, we got like, I don't know, 1/2 kilometer in the bush. I'm like, something is wrong with my back. Some sort of nerve thing, hey? Yeah. So I took my pack off and I put some Vaseline on it or something I had, or some sort of cream, put that on there, and it didn't help anything. No. So like, whatever. So we just kept going, and it got worse, and it actually spread around my sides, because originally it was just under my pack. Yeah. But then it was like went around my sides, and it actually came down the backs of my arms and kind of went around like inside my elbow, like in onto my forearm. And it was just like a perfect, like, and they say nerve pain is the worst. It was the weirdest thing. And like, I would just flex like this, and it would just like, and it would almost put my back into a spasm. It hurt that bad, but it felt like electrical, like it felt like electrical shocks is what it felt like. So, back up. So when we were sitting there at that transition, I got an email from this guy. So we had, right before I started the race on Wednesday, the run on Wednesday, like Friday before, I called a buddy of mine at Secure and I said, hey, I'm doing this run, and he knew about it. We talked about it. And, I said, I'm looking for a sponsor that will match the money that's raised while I'm running. So I said, whatever, I mean, set a maximum limit, but I said, I'm guessing, $500, maybe $1,000 to get donated while I'm running. Right. And I had no clue how much money was raised at this point yet. Right. I kind of estimated about 6,000 or 8,000 altogether. And No, closer to 6 or 10,000, 8 or 10,000. But I said, you guys talk about it, and if you're interested. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, I'll donate. I think he said 2,000. And he said, I'll talk to some other managers and see if we can top it up some more. So he's like, yeah. He's like, we'll match 3,000 up to $3,000. Wow.
Yeah.
So of course I didn't announce anything about it. I kind of alluded to it prior to the event, but then as soon as I started running, then I said, okay, this is what's going on, people. Like, you got to start donating now, because Secure's doubling this. Whatever, if you donate $20, Secure's going to donate $20. So Saturday night, right before I was starting to head out, I get an email from some guy at Synovus, and he's like, hey, I heard you're running 200 miles and Secure's going to match all the money you raise. He's like, we'll match whatever Secure donates.
Wow.
I'm like, what?
Nice.
I don't even know who this guy is.
Yeah,
like, no clue who he was.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I was just like stoked, like just jacked. So we go out, and then it's evening now. We go out, start this leg, and I'm happy. The group I was with, they're super talkative, fun group.
Yeah.
And get out to the highway, and Christy left. And Sherry had gone into the clinic and got some sort of cortisone cream or some sort of cream for my back.
Yeah.
And tried putting that on there, and that didn't really help much. But then Daryl came with me, and the plan was to go out to this, I can never remember which lake it is, Victor Lake, I think, where there's that beach, go out to that lake and then turn around and then come along the highway. So, and that was the other thing I forgot to mention is, when we were during the day, we had decided not to go up. The original plan was to go up over Flood and Grand. And the plan was to not do that because of the rain. And it just wasn't very good weather again. Mm-hmm. So rather than risk being up on top of the mountain, we thought we'll just stick lower into town and kind of plan our route as we go a little bit.
Right.
So Daryl was with me, and we're going along the ditch out there to the lake. And I get a text from Krista, and she's like, I just talked to Odyssey House, and your account has been you've raised $4,100 during the run.
Wow.
Which means Secure now matched 3,000 of it, and Synovus matched 3,000 of it. So what 10
so pretty much doubled what you had made it before.
Yeah, just over 10 grand raised while I was running.
Wow. That's awesome.
So it was just like a super high. Like,
yeah, I bet that's what you need when you're running.
One of the highest highs.
Yeah.
Like, that to me was just like one of the pinnacles of the run. Like, we had so much fun. So then Daryl, that was like right before we got to the lake. I'm like, Daryl, we got to go out into the lake. And of course we had gone to the mountains a couple times, and anyways, so Daryl and I went out to the lake. We did a Facebook Live standing like waist deep in the water.
Yeah.
And announced all this, that, that we'd raised this money, and that Secured matched it, and Synovus matched it. And just amazing moment, a highlight for sure.
Yeah.
So then we start going along the highway in the ditch, going back into Grand Cache. And again, now we're doing the winding down. It's like we're calculating the kilometers pretty closely to figure,
right, to make sure you're hitting where you need,
to see where it is. And Daryl's like, yeah, okay, we'll go down to the river after we get, after we go back to transition. Mm-hmm. So the next transition was back at the cemetery again in Grand Cache. Mm-hmm. So when we got in there, it was pretty dark. It was dark by the time we got there. And that's kind of on the north side of Grand Cache, just as you start kind of down the highway or down the hill. And they had a couple of propane fire pits, and there was a lot of people there. There was like probably 20 or 25 people there.
Yeah.
And walked up to the campfire, and there was my dad. And I didn't know my dad was coming. He was talking about coming to the finish line. And it was just, again, another one of those moments of just elation. Like,
exactly what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. And, but I think if anybody has given me my drive and my passion, my comfort for being in the woods, it's my dad. Like, he could explain, or I could explain it to my dad exactly what I've been through. And it was like this, and it was a lot like, going into 6 Mile Lake where I used to moose hunt. It was kind of like, and so it was so much fun just to talk with Dad and get him caught up and catch up like that.
Yeah.
And then that's when, Renee, a lady in Grand Cache, brought me this thing of pasta. And
yeah.
Like, so I had my dad made me so happy, and then Renee brought me this food. I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah.
So I can't remember if I slept then or not. I kind of think I did. Mm-hmm. And then went out on the last leg, and the plan was to go through Grand Cache, basically death race course backwards down to the river, and then come back. And as far as whatever we had to do to make the distance plus a little bit, that's what we had to do. And I had Zan and Yasna and Daryl, and couldn't have asked for a better group to finish with.
Yeah.
Like, Zan is, I told her before, I was like, you're the most annoying person in the world, but that's probably what I'll need at that point. And she is like, she's just loud and joking, and you love her to bits, but at that point in the round, I was just like, oh my God, I don't know if I can handle Zan right now. But she doesn't care though. Like, she's just, again, so comfortable with her that, I can be grumpy with her and she won't take it personally.
Yeah.
I can say whatever I want.
Which is exactly what you need on the back half of the thing like that.
But then Daryl was that steady, strong, grounded, just right beside me, kept me going, kept me strong. I couldn't have picked that team any better. And that was one of those ones I didn't know who was coming with me on that leg.
Yeah.
So we went down to the river, and Zan and Yasna's from Portugal or something. She's Spanish.
Yeah.
And they, so there's all these frogs. Of course, it's middle of the night. There's frogs everywhere.
Right.
And they're like counting frogs, and Daryl was in the front, and then I was behind her, or I was behind Daryl, and then Zan and Yasna were behind me. So Daryl's like, every once in a while he'd say frog, or there'd just be a frog there. So yeah, Zan is counting frogs. Well, most of them Daryl's chasing off. Okay. This is entertaining because I've been awake for like 100 hours.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to bear with me.
Yeah.
Okay. So most of the frogs Daryl's chasing off the road. So I start counting the frogs that Zan is missing, right?
Yeah.
This is like all a head game just to keep me awake and keep me entertained, right? And so Zan saw like 30 some frogs and I saw like 60 some. Like, I was just like, you're missing them. You missed that one. No, you didn't see that one.
Yeah.
But it's those little things that your mind,
like, that's what you need.
That's how your mind entertains itself when it's in that state. And so then we go down to the hill into the river. And again, my IT band was just like, oh man. And it's not a very long hill, but it's steep.
Yeah.
And we got down there and I was fighting sleep. So we slept down there for about 10 minutes. I think I slept there.
Yeah.
And turned around, came back up. And it was just not fun. Like at that point I was done. Like it was beat. I knew I could do it. I knew I would do it, but I'm just like, get me out of this.
Do you think it's harder at the point where you can do it and that you're going to do it? Because now I feel like almost what I would imagine is at every point, there's always that thing of, well, something might happen or something might come up and I might have, you talk about never having failure as an option or quitting as an option in there.
Yeah.
But there's always that idea of, well, this is double the distance. I don't know if my body's physically capable. Once you get to that point where it's, oh no, I'm going to do this. Does that make it harder at that point?
100% it does.
Really?
Yeah. And you'll see it, if 20K or if 10K is your comfortable distance, if you run 15K, you'll feel it at kilometer 12.
Yeah.
You'll just go, and you just die because, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And it's like you let down your guard and you stop building yourself up and you feel everything. You feel the pain. Whereas prior to that, you push all the pain back because my feet can't hurt. I still have 100K to go. Yeah. I can't do this. Let's not think about my IT band. I still got 80K to go. I still have to do this.
Right.
But at that point I had, 15K left and I was so far ahead of schedule. Like I was planning 100, I was planning 120 hours and we're at this point, we were probably 100 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm like I could have stopped and slept for 8 hours and still finished ahead of schedule. So that didn't help matters at all. But of course, Daryl wouldn't let me stop. So we kept pushing and pushing. And then we got to a point where we were almost back into town between Fireman's Pit and Grand Cache. And Daryl's like, we got to go down this road. And I'm like, of course I can't compute anything. Like I know how many kilometers we have, but I know it's 324 or something like that kilometers. But I can't compute things. And so I'm just thinking, we're at Fireman's Pit. It's like 3K to the finish. And then Daryl's like, we don't quite have enough kilometers. We got to go down. It's just like, no, like one of the biggest lows. Like it was just
I can imagine.
It was horrible.
And how many extra were you missing?
I can't even remember. I think like 4 or 3 but you might as well told me it was 20.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say,
seriously,
that might be 3 fucking leagues at that point.
Exactly. So he's like, let's go. We look kind of on Google Earth or Google Maps, and yeah, there's this little gravel road. So we go down the gravel road, and it was just, I didn't know how far we had to go, which made it even worse. Like I didn't know where the mark was. And it was just a big wide gravel road with like no landmarks and nothing on it and no traffic. And I'm just like, and so I'd count steps, and I'd walk 100 steps, and then I'd run 100 steps, and then I'd walk 100. And of course, then you lose track. And so it was just frustrating. And finally, I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, it's just,
why am I doing this?
This is where I'm at in my head. Right. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like let's get this done. I'm like, screw it. Let's run. And so that's when I just broke out and I started running, and it was downhill a little bit. Yeah. So I could kind of run it. And then be fine. And I'm like, okay, there's construction there, and there's like a barricaded, a culvert or something like that. I'm like, oh, I bet we'll turn around here. Nope. Daryl goes running. I'm like, no. So finally we go turning around. We turned around, went back. Of course, then it's uphill and it's too steep. I'm pretty beat. It's too steep for me to run. So we, power hiking this thing. And now there's that, it starts to pick me up mentally again, because I know we're going back. Yeah. I know you're on your way to I don't know how many kilometers it is, but I know we're going back now. So we got back, and in Grand Cache, there's this ram monument. It's called Rocky the Ram. And, so Ken kept his line was, he's like, if you don't have enough mileage when you get here, I'm going to make you do laps around Rocky the Ram. That was kind of his thing. Yeah. So we're coming back through Grand Cache, and it's just like, whoo, it's daylight now. And we know like it's like 2 kilometers away. And I told Daryl, I'm like, I better do a lap around Rocky the Ram just for Ken. Yeah. So he videoed it or took a picture of me when I ran around it for Ken. Yeah. And then, so then I told them ahead of time, like right from the beginning, I told people I wanted to finish by myself. Yeah. So, and I kind of told them, like, once we cross the highway at the lights there, I was like, you guys run on ahead. You guys can run obviously faster than I can. I was like, you guys run on ahead. I was like, I'll be right behind.
I'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was, it was downhill, and, I wanted to, you always run to the finish line. Yeah. Even if you don't feel like it. Yeah. And, so it was all downhill, luckily. And I could hear, it was I think it was about 8:00 in the morning. And I don't know, there must have been 30 people or so there, maybe more. And Krista was on the road, like ahead of everybody, videoing it. And I can't remember what song they had playing, but it was one of those, I almost want to say is We Are the Champions. Yeah,
that was going to be my guess. That was going to be my guess. It was
one of those kind of songs, yeah. And just burst into tears. Like, I'm just like, I'm running and I'm crying, and I'm running and I'm crying. They had the whole finish line all set up. They set up these banners from Secure Energy and Odyssey House. They got some ratchet strap, and they took a whole bunch of my running t-shirts with all my races, and they like ran it through the sleeves. Yeah. And so all these shirts were hanging there. Cool. They had all my shoes. Of course, I had to think, I don't know, 6 or 8 pairs of shoes down there. And they had all these shoes like lined up, lining the road that I was running down. And then they had a roll of toilet paper across to the finish line.
For the stripe.
So it was just, you couldn't ask for a better finish. And I remember running across, I was crying as I'm running, and crossed the finish line. I went and I hugged Sherry, and I just kind of melted in the chair afterwards. And the first time, out of all the ultras that I've run, there's always a low when you're done. Yeah. It's always like, you're done, now what? This, it hits me right, like 5 minutes after you cross the finish line, kind of when that high from the finish line leaves, it hits me. And I didn't have it with this race. I never did. Like, I never had that low point that kind of hit me of what do I do next?
And do you have any idea what that difference is? Do you think it was the fact of just what kind of different accomplishment it was of it from being 100 miles to 200 miles? Was it the fact that it wasn't a race and it was something that you put together? Was it all the money you raised? What do you think that was?
I think it was probably a combination
of all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, my goal, and especially the closer we got to the finish, and once we got, Secure sponsored it like they did, and Synovus, those guys, then it became, my goal really was to raise money for Odyssey House. Yeah. And this was, and okay, or maybe, I don't know which was my goal. My goal was to run 100 miles or 200 miles, but, I was very passionate about raising the funds for Odyssey House.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to see. And especially after they told me that they were doing it for an outdoor play area for the kids. Like it was like, yes, they need this. Like, and that's what I wished, man, I wish I would have sold sponsored the legs for more money than just $500. I should have gone for $1,000. Like, that's, but what do you do, eh?
Yeah.
So, and after that, I told Sherry, like, we kind of wrapped things up there, and I told Sherry, I'm like, let's just go home. Like, I'm tired. I don't want to go to the hotel. We were going to go to the hotel, and I'm like, let's just go home. So we went to A&W, and I got a burger, and I sat in the car and ate it while Sherry and my dad loaded the car because she wasn't really ready to go yet. Even.
Right.
I don't even remember eating that sandwich. I remember waking up briefly when Sherry got back in the car when we started to drive. And then, of course, she'd been awake lots too.
Right.
So I tried to stay awake till we got back to Grand Prairie, and as best I could, I did. But it was a very different culmination than what I was expecting. Like it wasn't, I don't want to say it was a low because it was definitely a very high point. It was, but it didn't follow with that big low. Right. Which was,
and you're probably waiting for it too.
I was. Oh, for sure I was. I was mentally prepared for it, but it never hit.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And that was something preparing for this conversation. I was preparing to ask you about that specifically and that low and stuff. That's interesting. Can I maybe steal one bathroom break because I'm about to pee my pants and I'll ask you all the deep questions about it? Beautiful. That is very rare that I have to ask for the bathroom break before the guests. So you've won that round on me. I should have known I couldn't pit my will against you. So yeah, I'm curious about that. You come over the finish line, you're waiting for that low, and it probably took a while to really digest where that was coming from and why it'd be different. Hey, I'm sure that didn't occur to you right in the moment. Hey,
no, because it's one of those things, like, especially you prepare for everything and you also prepare for the end too, and that's, the one thing I did talk about lots afterwards is what's next. Where do we go? Like, what's the next thing to do for next year?
Yeah.
So, I spent lots of time thinking about that, but definitely didn't have the usual post-race blues, maybe because it wasn't a race. I don't know.
Yeah. and that's what I'm curious about. And it's funny to see, probably on your next one, you won't even be able to see what that difference is because you're never going to be able to hold all the like scientifically, because it'll be a race, but now you're not raising the money. So you don't know if that was the aspect. You don't know if it was the camaraderie of that team, of the event that it was, because there's always a team involved, but it's never to that degree where the entire race staff is your team, right? Yeah. Where when you go to a big race, you have your people to help you through, but it's not that camaraderie with the whole thing. I wonder.
And, maybe part of it too was the anticipation, because I still didn't know how much money I had raised, because Odyssey House had their account that people could donate to for tax receipt.
Yeah.
And then I had my account, and my account I never looked at. Like all I had was a debit card for it, and I never used it.
Yeah.
And I never got any statement. So I had no clue how much money. I kind of was keeping a little bit of a mental, because I'd sold all the legs.
Hard not to. Yeah.
Because I knew I'd sold all the legs for $500 and then some other big donations. So I figured we were around that, 10 grand plus what was raised during the run. So.
Right. And that was when you were about to put that all together. And that's the next day, or like when?
I think it was like I finished Sunday morning, and I think it was, I want to say it was Wednesday or Thursday when we did the check presentation, and way more than what I thought we were going to raise. Almost, just over $28,000 we raised.
That is awesome. Yeah. For a great cause too.
Oh, and it was, even the ladies at Odyssey House were just blown away by it. And they went and showed me this play area they wanted to develop. And it was, in hindsight, I wished I had got more information about it, like how much money they needed, and kind of made my goal that way. But they said, you know what, we had one other lady that made a big donation to this. And she said, with what's been raised now, she said, we'll have enough money to finish it.
Awesome.
So that was, and maybe that was why I didn't have that low, because there was still that anticipation of
it's all over.
But it's still continuing. Like they said they're going to invite me back to see it once it's all finished.
Cool.
So that'll be neat to see what everybody did. Like,
so then does that teach you any lessons for future races that is going to in an attempt to limit that post-race blues, does anything you learned from this experience change how you're going to go at your next race to try and bring that in? Or does the post-race blues not bug you that much that you can get through it kind of thing?
I don't know, because I don't really know what I did to avoid it this time.
Fair.
I think I would still just prepare for them, and maybe it's just because I have more experience.
Very well could be.
And I know there'll be another run.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's why it.
And maybe I'm curious. This is completely me just thinking out of my ass here, but I wonder if when you were doing those 100-milers, of knowing that 200-miler is out there in your future, of knowing that that's the one thing, but now that you've done it, and obviously there's always a bigger race, there's always a bigger fish, but I feel like for some reason, and I could be completely wrong about this, and please tell me if I am, but it seems like from what I've listened to with all these podcasts, is there's something about a 200-miler besides the distance. It's some sort of mystique or badge of honor around it that is a completely different beast, and it's such a small subset. I mean, 100 miles is a very small subset of people, but 200 miles is just a whole other level. I wonder if that's it, of just knowing.
It could be, because even when you finish, I remember when I finished my first ultra at 60 kilometers, my first thought is, okay, what do I do next? What do I go next? Where am I, do I do 100K? Do I do the death race? What do I do? And so maybe that's, with the 200-miler, it's in my mind, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Like I know where my next big run is.
And you can do it.
And I know I can do it. And it's not even it's not a question, I guess.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Like, there's a lot of variables in there that I don't know what it's going to be.
And also, like we talked about last time too, is it's not something, an event that big is not something you decompress from and digest fully in a week or a month or even a year. Probably that's probably something that you're going to be pulling stuff out of there for a long time. So you're probably at this point not even sure, probably haven't even fully digested everything that you went through at this point, right? Like, and I'm curious to ask about that, but I'd be remiss. And I know last time I really tried to pressure on this and it seemed like we didn't get very far, but I feel like I'm always so curious about the recovery.
Yeah.
So you finished the race. The plan was to stay there, but you went home. Then is that right into bed as soon as you get home?
No, I think it was about 10 o'clock actually when we went to bed.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's when the problem started.
Okay, all right. Because I feel like last time I was trying to pressure you, I was waiting for all these horror stories, all the stuff that happened, and it didn't sound like it was that crazy. Or it sounded crazy, but it seemed like you downplayed it. But I was thinking, well, maybe 200 miles. Maybe that's where I'll get the good.
So I wore compression compression sleeves. I think the whole time, actually. Changed socks lots, but I didn't ever wear compression socks. No, I did on the long leg with Daryl on leg 3, the 53K.
So, and the difference between a compression sleeve and a compression sock is just if it goes over your foot or not?
Yeah, so a compression sleeve basically goes from just under your knee down to your ankle.
Gotcha.
And then what it does, though, it allows you to change your socks. If your socks are bad,
right?
Or if you
didn't you say last time you don't even like to see your feet?
No, but I knew with this one, I was going to have to. We were going to have to monitor. I was going to have to prevent blisters, not treat blisters. Right. That was my plan going into this.
And how did that work?
Phenomenal.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh. And I could show you some pictures of my feet, and they're not gross because they were taped up. Like I'd come into a transition. I got a hot spot here. Put a piece of tape on it. Like,
and what kind of? I'm just curious about this because I've always battled blisters just in my tiny little runs. Like, what is your best ammunition against blisters? What are you using?
I found like just this P tape.
Yeah.
I put like on the bottoms of my feet. I put Peniton, that diaper rash cream.
Mm-hmm.
Little layer of that, and then that Peniton tape, or then the P tape, and it kind of absorbs that Peniton, and it sticks right to your foot. Like, amazing. And I don't know if I must have changed like the bottom of my feet probably once. But like a lot of my toes, like I had both my big toes. I had probably my first 3 toes were all taped. And I'd usually, like, if I felt a blister coming on the end of my toe, I'd wrap a piece of tape over my toenail and down and then around my toe. And yeah, like it just looked like a horrible big tape bandage war wound.
Yeah.
And then, you know, on the tops, my one foot, like I ran once with my shoelaces too tight. And so I started to get a blister right on the top there. Mm-hmm. So just put a piece of tape there, you know, on the back of my heel. I don't normally get blisters there, but I did. So I was starting to go, and so I just put a piece of tape there.
Yeah.
And actually on my hands too, from running with poles.
Wow. I didn't even think
that's the first time I'd ever put tape on my hands.
How was the roof of your mouth? You mentioned last time that the roof of your mouth gets sore.
Roof of my mouth was fine, but my front half of my tongue went numb while I was running, and I got canker sores, like six of them, like all over my tongue.
Those are so annoying. Fuck those things.
I can't remember. They kind of they came on pretty quick at about the 100-mile mark. 80 miles is probably where I got my first one. And then I want to say they must have been almost gone by 150 or 180 miles.
Your body's just thinking, what more can we send to this fucker to tell him to stop? We'll try this. Okay, I think we'll try this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had the tingling nonsense in my back.
Right.
And then my tongue. And I wasn't sure if my tongue maybe was from the smoke. And just because it's like kind of right in the front. And I typically, I think, breathe out of my mouth or breathe out of my mouth a lot when I'm running.
Right.
But then... yeah, that was probably the oddest things. But then when I came home then and went to bed, I woke up, I don't know what time it was, and I was sleeping on my back, and it was like my whole body was asleep. And my arms were like tingling, numb.
Nerve stuff again.
Dead. Like I didn't know where, like typically, you know, if you're sitting down or whatever, if you straighten out your leg, then it'll get better. Yeah. I didn't know what position to get into to get circulation back in my hands again. Wow. Or I don't know, circulate, whatever it is, feeling anyways. And actually ever since then, my 3 fingers on both hands have been like sound asleep.
Wow.
My right hand is pretty much better. Like it's like most of the time it's like 95% better. This hand, my left hand is still pretty bad, and it starts about my second knuckle, and it goes up, and it gets worse, like right under my fingernails, like right at the tops of the tips of my fingers. And it's still at night, my hands go to sleep really bad, and I don't know. I've been to chiropractor and physiotherapist. And
have you been to a doctor and asked them about it?
No, not
yet.
It's not that bad.
Well, you're probably so busy with your job now.
And I actually have one toe that goes numb too.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? And it seems like for the most part, it's a lot of that. I mean, what am I to diagnose anything? But it all sounds like nerve stuff, and that's interesting. Of when you push your body to, you know, your muscles and that, you know what pushing those look, but that long-term cardio, like the especially with the imbalance of you're losing so much of your electrolytes and then replenishing them all in these different, and it's so hard to, at the best of times, like to try and keep that balance up. Your body's probably just going through this amazing amount of shock with all of the electrical signals and stuff, and that just throws so many wrenches at it. It doesn't even know what to do with itself.
Yeah. And it never bothered me during the running at all.
That's what I was going to ask you, because we had talked a little bit before, so you had mentioned the things about your fingers, and I knew that going in. So I was waiting kind of the whole time. When did the fingers start to go to sleep? It was after.
It was after. Yeah.
Really?
But see, my plan was to run without poles some. I did. Trying to think of when it was now. Maybe the first leg I didn't run with my poles, or the second leg. And then it's like I just kind of forgot, and I used them all the whole time pretty much.
Yeah.
So it was a good plan, but I didn't actually carry it out because I wanted to give my arms a break,
right?
You know, and not use them all the time. Yeah. But what do you do? Like,
right. So then, well, that reminds me of the next one. I was going to go into lessons learned for when you do, because it sounds like you're going to attack that race of lessons like that, but just still in the recovery. So then, you wake up and a lot of the nerve stuff's kind of bugging you. I imagine that'd be annoying to get through the night, and then by the time you got to the time where you got to get out of bed, then what's the biggest ones?
So, you know, that was I recovered surprisingly well. Like I would say within a week, I was, you know, even going downstairs, my IT band would bother me.
Right.
But within 5 days or a week, it was fine.
Really.
And, you know, I had 2 big blisters on my, well, not big even, like I had one about the size of a loonie, which was my biggest blister on the outside of my one heel. And then I had kind of a smaller one on the other foot in the same place. But I recovered. I didn't lose any toenails. Like,
Jeez.
so talk about disappointments. I didn't lose a toenail. I didn't hallucinate. And, like it was.
Well, there goes this question right here.
Yeah.
Because I see what the last time you said.
My wife, Sherry, tried to tell me that I was hallucinating one time. And I'm like, no, I wasn't. Like, I made some comment about a fox, seeing a fox or a grouse or something, and it was a rock on the other side of a puddle, and it really did look like it was a grouse sitting there. And I made some comment to Christine about it being a grouse, and then no, it was just a rock.
Yeah,
but I'm like, no, I remember that. It did look like a grouse. It was not.
I want to be visited. I want to talk to somebody.
I want to see like a unicorn or something.
Well, you keep pushing. I'm sure you'll get there eventually. Especially go do that Yukon shit. That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh man. So again, well, that's I'm not going to say disappointing, but I was hoping I get more out of the recovery because I feel like that's always the meatiest part of these is just the effect it has on your body. But I think that's just a testament to the training and what you put in and the knowledge and the, not just your knowledge, but the knowledge base you had around you and your coach and all that. I think that speaks volumes to that. And also just to the sport of where it's gotten to this point that people can push the human body to this point with that good of recovery. It just fascinates me to no end.
Yeah. But some of that, like I've learned too, that, not to push yourself during the recovery. And so I haven't run. Well, the first time I ran was at Death Race. I was volunteering there and I was putting up some signs. And so I ran about probably 2 kilometers on the highway. And that would have been, well, that was actually only 2 weeks after it. Was it 2 weeks? Yeah, it must have been only 2 or 3 weeks. But I was pretty surprised at how good I felt.
Yeah.
But I haven't been, I've gone out and done a couple 10Ks and I noticed that I get really tired afterwards. Like I definitely fatigue faster.
Yeah.
Lost a lot of weight.
I haven't your body just hasn't replenished its stores, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. So then I'm curious. I mean, I'm sure we'll probably finish this off with the life lesson, the personal lesson, which we kind of covered a bit as we went through. But I'm curious specifically if you are planning on attacking the actual race. Like we talked about, this was a run; it wasn't a race. But if you are planning for the next one to be attacking a race, what are the big lessons you learned, and what are the big surprises that came in that you think that give you that confidence for when you do go to a race that you'll be better off than you would have if you just done the traditional path of a 100-mile race to a 200-mile race?
So the one lesson that I will never forget is that I'm strong enough.
Yeah.
And I don't care how you want to spin it or what.
Quantify that. Or,
or how it doesn't matter. I firmly believe that anything you come up against in life, you're strong enough to go through it. Is it going to be easy? No. Are you going to learn something in the process? I hope so. Because if you didn't learn something, it was kind of a wasted opportunity and you probably just missed the life lesson. So, that's the biggest thing is that I'm strong enough to do it. But then I also know how to respect it. Like the distance, and I would say the distance isn't as bad as the time, like being time on feet, but they're both pretty harsh. Like the physical aspect of it, it's tough on your body. Like nerve stuff, you can't train for that. Like you can't, there's nothing you can do. An IT band, okay, I should have rolled my legs more. I should have been, more stretching, better hydrated, whatever. Nerve stuff, I don't know what you do about that. There's nothing you can do about that. Canker sores in your mouth, I don't know.
Mental toughness.
You just have to go through it. And so those are the lessons that then, how do you bring into my next 200-mile? I know that these are the things I'm going to face.
Yeah.
And I have to respect that. There'll probably be, maybe I will hallucinate on the next one. I don't know. There'll probably be some other odd, stupid thing that'll happen to me, but I know that I can push through it. But the flip side of it is because I know that, I have to respect it. Because if you don't and you go in there all cocky and say, hey, I've done 200 miles, I can do 200 miles again.
Yeah.
No, that's not the way it is.
That's not the way this works.
You'll get kicked when you're down.
Especially what we talked about earlier of how every race is different and just something as small as the weather, not to mention a different track and a different course, right? Like every one is its own beast when you're, once you get above, I don't know, I almost think 100 milers too, but just like 200 for sure.
But it's everybody like it. And that's the thing that and again, I don't want to sound arrogant or whatever, but I think that's something that people that maybe if they haven't done a half marathon or you haven't done a marathon, they don't realize that for you, for example, what's the longest you've run?
Half.
Okay. So for you to run a marathon is just about as monumental as it is for me to run 200 miles.
Right.
Because I'm trained to run 100 miles. I've done it, I've done 125K several times. It's a big deal to do 200 miles. For you, it's a big deal to do a marathon. Like that's huge. And it wasn't, when was it? I had a Facebook memory pop up the other day of my first ultra. And it was like 2017, 4 years ago. I did a training one that was 44 kilometers long. And it's the same distance, or it's the same thing for you when you push yourself to go. It might be to go do your first 10K.
Yeah.
It is monumental and things are going to hurt.
Yeah.
And it's the
you're going
to
to learn some shit about yourself.
You're going to learn lessons and it's the same lessons. It's the same type of skills you learn, whatever you're doing. So don't belittle yourself because all you can do is 10K or all you can do is a half marathon.
Yeah.
It's the same monument. It's pushing yourself to those same limits.
Yeah.
Learning your body, learning how to deal with all those challenges. You still have the mental battles in there in a half marathon. I sure did in mine. Like it's the same. But you don't realize it until you're on the other side of it and you're looking back on it and you see, it's the same.
and sometimes it takes somebody to tell you something, like what you mentioned earlier about that thing at the end when you realize you can do it, and you were talking about when that kicks your ass. When I did that, and it wasn't actual race, and that's why I think I know I've done the distance of a half marathon, but I've never actually done it in a race.
Yeah.
And when I did it at that time, I was feeling good. I was doing about a 15K run, I was probably about 12 or 13 in, and I thought, I feel really good. I think I can do it. I think I can do a half, and I'm going to try. But I didn't know if I could. So I get to about 15. Oh, I feel really good. And then I got to 18. And at 18, for some reason in my head, that was the number of, well, if I can do 18, I'm going to do 22 or whatever, 21 and a half, whatever it is. I can do it. And that was the point. Everything fell apart.
And the last 10%. That's what I say.
And I was just attributing that to I've never ran this far. But once you mentioned that, I was thinking, I'm sure that's what that was, of knowing, well, now, I know I can do it. And if I quit now, it's 100% on me because I know I can do this, right? And then everything started to hurt. Everything started to come together. And, oh man,
it's the same with nutrition and hydration for me too.
Right.
I tend again the last 10% or 5K or 10K is like I just kind of give up eating and drinking because I know I'm there.
Yeah.
But you can't, like you still need the energy. You still got,
especially when your body's that depleted at that point. You got to do everything right till the finish.
Yeah.
Wow. I wouldn't even have thought that because I would do the exact same thing, right? Like if you're at that point, but you can't get away with it at that point.
I've done that several times.
I've learned that lesson multiple times. Here's kind of a silly question that I honestly, it was just from listening to our first conversation that I recognized I didn't ask that. And I remember having a question about it in the moment, not asking it. And then when I listened to it again, I was like, oh, I have a question about that too. It's the combination of salt tablets and the electrolyte concentrate you had.
Yeah.
What is it? What is the difference? Like, what is one giving you versus the other?
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Fair enough. Maybe I finally stumped you.
So, and I don't know what's in one versus in what's the other. Well, I shouldn't say that. Salt is strictly salt.
Yeah. Sodium. Right.
And
electrolytes has potassium and magnesium.
Yes. And it has caffeine. It has some sugar in it. It has a lot of things. Like it's a pre-workout. And I actually used to take it in the evening when I come home, and I've got the uncaffeinated stuff too, decaffeinated.
Yeah.
If I was going for a run in the evening and I'd get off work and I just dragging my ass and not feeling like going, I just slam a glass of that and you just like boing and you snap right out of it and away you go. So it's a little bit of a pick me up. Whereas I think that would be more nutrition,
right? And
the salt would be more of more feeding your I don't even know how to describe, more feeding your body, like and
just replenishing what you're losing.
Whereas the electrolytes are actually a nourishment or something that helps you keep going. And I think the salt is actually probably more of a preventative. I actually had a discussion on Facebook with a guy about that the other day.
Yeah.
How it, don't take salt after the fact. take salt to prevent cramps.
Exactly. You don't want to get to that point
Yeah.
where
Don't
where
let
you
it
need that.
happen.
Then that's when you're in trouble, and
Yeah.
that's when it's so much harder to dig yourself out of that hole
Yeah.
than to keep on top of it. What was the other thing you were saying that it was like that earlier in the conversation? You said there's something else where you wanted to really stay on top of it. Oh, it was the not letting yourself get to that point of hunger, because then it's so much harder to get past that. It's just interesting of stuff like that where you would never learn those lessons unless you're in that fire of what you're putting yourself through. I just find little things like that fascinating.
Yeah.
The lessons you can learn from people, because I don't think I'm ever going to be out there running this, but I can learn a lesson or two from you. I'll let you go be the crazy fucker that runs 200 miles. I'll just learn a lesson or two from it. That's right. Oh, that's awesome. So looking back now that you're on the other side of it, I'm curious what you thought of administration is not the right word. The non-running side of what you put together. What are your thoughts now that you're through it? Because I feel like it'd be hard to really parse out what parts are you enjoying because you know you're going to race it, and what parts do you enjoy of just the actual, like the setup and the planning and the routing? Because I know I've heard people talk about ultra running into their 50s, into their 60s and stuff, but then there's a transitionatory period for people that really love the sport of getting into more of the planning of the races and cutting trail and stuff. And I know I think we talked about this a little bit on the other conversation, but I'm just curious for yourself how you enjoyed that side of the things. Is that something you'd ever want to do again?
Or? Oh, 100%. And I think right now I'm kind of almost torn because I'll plan an event, but then I want to run the event because it sounds like fun. It's hard to do both. Yeah. So that's what I'm looking at doing next year is running the 6 peaks.
Oh, okay.
Because I missed it. I didn't get all the bronze peaks. And I shouldn't let the cat out of the bag because somebody will beat me to it. But there's been, and actually I think somebody might have this year. I don't know. Maybe they didn't work out. I didn't hear it. But there's been some people that have done all the 6 peaks this summer, actually, in the same day, like in a 24-hour period, but they don't run the whole thing. So they drive from trailhead to trailhead.
Right. And just go up the peak, drive to the next
So,
one,
I mean, it's still like 80 some K and it took them like 19 hours. So,
Holy
it's
shit.
still ridiculous.
It's not nothing. Yeah.
No, but you know, I've already looked at the route a little bit differently and kind of planned a route. I think I can do it in about 100 or 110 K. To go
peanuts, right?
Yeah, not really, because that's a lot.
I know,
elevation.
I'm kidding.
I know, but so yeah, that's kind of my thought actually for next year is to try to get, you know, maybe 6 to 10 people to do it with me.
Yeah,
and you know, get some volunteers to crew for us. But you know, part of me says, "Oh, let's do this in a race," but I was like, "Yeah, no, that's too much work."
Yeah, that's a lot.
But again, just. I want next year to be a little bit of an off year for me. So
well, I thought you already had next year planned. I thought it was going to be the 1 mile, 1 beer every hour for 24 hours.
That's this September.
Oh, that's this September. Jesus Christ, September.
Yeah,
that's coming up already.
I know. I was actually just talking to somebody about that.
Oh yeah,
that's my plan. Anyways, I don't know if it'll happen.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I still want to. Yeah,
I would have just imagined you need much more recovery before you'd even think about anything in September. That just blows my mind.
And I haven't run much to know, like, to really get a good feel for it. But I've done 10K a couple times, and you know, I don't know if I've done. No, I haven't done any mountains since then.
Yeah,
which is smart. Like, I think I'd probably fatigue pretty fast.
Yeah, just tapper cool.
But even now, like, we must be 6 weeks out, 5 weeks. I think 4 or 5 weeks out now. So yeah, I'm probably good to go.
Jesus, I think you would say that regardless of whatever time it was, you're good to go. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and I guess that is the grind of it too. Is if you are planning and all that stuff, you get so excited about it. How was it going to the death race after years and watching everybody run it and not being a part of it? How was that for you?
Horrible.
Well, I'm glad I asked. Yeah, there must be something there.
That's actually a great question. Yeah, like, I've never been to the death race and not run it before.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so, and of course it was only 2 weeks after my run. So it was still pretty fresh. And, you know, you go back there for the first time and you see some of those mountains again, and the memories come back, and, you know, you see
not just the death race, but your race too, right?
Yeah. Especially because that was pretty deep and engrossed in my mind.
Yeah.
Then you go to the start line, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Then you go to the start line, and it's like, oh, I wish I was running.
Yeah.
But we actually, Sherry and I volunteered at the 3-4 transition.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. I think that was from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock at night, I think.
And how far have people ran when they're coming through that transition?
60 kilometers.
Okay. So you're seeing some people.
Yeah,
some...
but we were there pretty early. So we kind of helped set up the transition. And then like the runners were just kind of starting to come through pretty steady when we got there.
And I'm curious about that because I would imagine with a race like that, are there people coming through that have done 200 miles before and this is kind of peanuts? And you're seeing guys come through that are still pretty fresh at that point, and then you're seeing people that this is their first time, and are you seeing the full gambit?
You see the whole thing. So then, and this leads into answer your question. So then at 8 o'clock, we went up to Ambler Loop, which is about 80 or 85 kilometers in.
Mm-hmm. And death race is 125.
125,
right.
Yeah. So, and at that point, we were, it was 9 o'clock at night, and we were there till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 or 3. We were there a long time. No, it was almost 4 before we finally left there. But so we see some of those athletes come through there, and by this time, they're beat. And there was a lady that I believe she won Sinister this year, and she came in at like 11 o'clock, which again, she's crazy, amazing athlete. I'm usually coming into that point about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So that's how far ahead she is.
Shit.
And she's like, I'm ready to quit. And I'm like, no, you can't quit. Like I said, you can sit here for 3 hours and then walk the rest of the way and you'll still finish.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I'm done. Like, I'm not feeling good. I'm like, don't quit. I said, sit down over here. I said, just calm yourself, try to eat a little bit, like just relax.
Mm-hmm.
And her stomach was giving her grief. So I said, have some soup, just
drink a bunch of
take
water.
some time. Yeah. So here's the thing. And this was kind of the cool part and made it more passionate for me being there is I knew what those people felt like when they got there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to say sympathize, but I could feel their pain.
Empathize.
And I'm like, you need pickle juice. When was the last time you took salt? Oh, I've never taken salt. Take some salt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have some pickle juice. Juice. Yes. Take some pickle juice.
Yeah.
And then, so you start helping those people. I'm just dying. I want to quit. Okay. Well, Ambler Loop is 5 kilometers. I said, go do Ambler Loop, come back here. I said, walk that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I could explain the trail to them. This is how it is. You're going to go down and you're going to go up, you can go around a corner, come up and back down here. And I said, do that and then come back here and see how you feel. When they get back there, they know, okay, it's 7 kilometers downhill. And then you've got 3 kilometers on the highway, and then you're on the last leg.
Yeah.
Like
you can
then
do
you're
this.
20
Yeah.
kilometers. You can do that.
Mm.
And it's midnight now. You can walk the whole thing and finish it. Like, can you walk? Like, can you just keep walking?
Can you stumble?
Can you stumble?
Yeah.
So, and actually then to back up that story. And so that lady sat there for probably 2 hours.
Wow.
And she did end up scratching at that point of the race. Like she did end up dropping, and she'd get up every once in a while. And same thing, like you see those, how people are pushing themselves, and she would stand up and she'd try to walk, like she'd just walk kind of back and forth in the transition area.
Yeah.
And you could see she was like staggering and then she'd sit down and she was lightheaded and wanted to puke again. And I'm like, okay. I was like, well, let's sit down some more.
Yeah.
So she gave everything. Like she pushed herself as far as she could. Like at that point, you've tried everything.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy that came in and like, it was like midnight or something. He's like, yeah, I'm done. And I'm like, you got tons of time. Like, don't quit yet. Like, no, I've been here before. I've finished it before. I could finish it if I really had to, but he's like, I don't need to.
I've done it before.
Like, I've done it, and it just didn't mean anything to him. So I quit.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like, I guess if that's the way you go into it, then fine.
Wow.
But it was interesting to have a new perspective, and it almost tears me because I'd go back and do that transition again.
Yeah.
Like, it was so much fun to see.
Man,
that.
just listening to you talk about the stories of helping people through that gave me the biggest goosebumps, I think, of this whole conversation. Like that, you can see the passion you have for passing on. It's almost a piece of like passing on that understanding, and it's such a rarefied air to be in that moment and to understand, or not understand, right? Because like you said, you can't sympathize, but you can empathize, right? You have a little bit of that empathy for where they are in that situation. It might not be exactly what they're feeling, but you've been close.
So there was this funny story. I don't know the guy's name.
Yeah.
Hopefully he listens to this. There was this guy that comes in and he was ready. He was not doing well. He's like, I'm chafing everywhere. I'm like, you need this Peniton cream, man. And so I brought a duffel bag with everything, like Peniton, tape, spare bladders, spare packs, spare everything, headlamps, batteries. And I'm like, buddy, you need Peniton. I was like, where are you chafing? And he's like, in my butt and around my balls. I'm like, okay, here's how this works.
This on yourself.
He's like, 2 rules. You're putting it on yourself. And I said, you got 10 fingers. I'm dipping out of the can. And I said, I'll put it on 1 finger. You can do 1 shot. I said, if you need more, I'll put it on a different finger. So he did like 4 shots before he finally got it all covered. And then he went out and he kind of does the whole little walk and waddle, and he's like,
cowboy.
Oh my God. He's like, that feels like horrible. He says, I'm like, it'll get better. Trust me, it'll get better. He goes out and does the Ambler loop. He comes back and he's like, buddy, he's like, that was the best thing ever. He says,
oh man, as a lifelong chafer myself, a good chafe product is next level.
Oh yeah.
You know, Vaseline works, but then one time, I don't know where I found it. I think my dad found it. This stuff is called Lanacane or something. And there's a couple different kinds. There's like an extra strength that's not as good. There's this one, and it is just like silk. When you put that on, it is just like your legs slide by each other. Like there's nothing even coming in contact. And when I found that stuff, that was a game changer. That's what I was thinking. Eventually, when I start getting some sponsors on this podcast, I think Lanacane might have to be one of my sponsors. You know, because I can speak to the big boy chafe like nobody else. Like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, and I'm wondering, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question, but it's just a curiosity I have of when you're in those dark places of when you want to quit and you're having that battle, that internal battle with yourself. Do you recognize the difference? And I think this is going to be different for everybody, but do you recognize the difference from having someone tell you, you can do it and you can just do this, have some pickle juice, from somebody that's done it before versus somebody else? Because I was just thinking of all these people coming through this aid station and getting that kind of advice. And just by the advice that they're giving, they can recognize that you've probably been there before, versus if it was someone like me that has run 20 kilometers, that's like the longest you've ever run and almost killed you.
Yeah.
The words are going to ring a little bit hollow. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that yourself, or have you always just had your same people, so you've never had that experience to be able to differentiate between the two?
No, I can tell the difference. And I look back when I was running races and you come into a transition area and somebody, you can tell right away if somebody is a runner or not. Like, and even at the other race volunteers, and it's interesting. It was a very interesting observation to work at a transition area like that, where exactly like you said, some people, they don't have, it's almost like your credibility. Yeah. And you say, you know what, this is what you need. And it's not like, oh, you look really good today. You're doing strong. You're feeling strong. Like, no, I'm not. I feel like a bag of shit. And I don't no, like I'm not like rather. And even knowing where people are in that place, because people come out of the bush and they're just like, and it's like dark now. And you come into these bright lights and like, and it's just like, here, have some pickle juice. What do you need? Oh, I don't know. Okay, sit down over here. How are your feet? Okay. And you just simple and plain and to the point, and you deal with them. When have you eaten last? What have you eaten last? Oh, you haven't had anything to eat. Okay, well, what do you eat this then? Oh, I don't like that. Well, try this then. Yeah. And it was actually interesting how many people commented, hey, you're the guy that I saw in that film last year. Yeah. And so I think that kind of gave a little bit of credibility to it too. But even still, and I think everybody's probably different, because those people might not like somebody, I don't care who you are, telling them what to do. Yeah. So, I mean, you give advice and it's just as much, it's up to the person to receive it or not. Because I'm kind of the same way, and I tend to be a little bit hard on other people, maybe, like, especially credibility, like, especially if I know, like in a run like that, and I come into an aid station and I know where I'm at and what I need, and I've mentally prepared for me, and they tell me, oh no, you should sit down. I was like, no, I shouldn't. Like, I need to keep going. Because
that's
like,
exactly why I asked that question.
Yeah. And with that being said, you don't always get it right either. Like some people, I tell them, here, have a seat. And they're like, no, I don't want to sit down. I'll never get back up. And I'm like, yeah, good point. Like, I've been there too. I know that.
But that's the thing. The fact that you've been there, not to press of, hey, this is what you need in that moment. And I wonder, again, I don't think you'll be able to answer this question, but just me, what occurs to me in the moment is I wonder how cool it would be to talk to somebody that has been in this game for years, right?
Yeah.
Because there's got to be those people that have been around this game for a long time.
You know,
to watch how these transition stations change and to have, because if you go back 10 years, there's probably not a lot of guys like yourself that have the experience that aren't in the race itself that could help people through like that. Like, and to see it expand, to have people that are at these aid stations that have this type of knowledge like that, it's probably just such a cool transition.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fascinating to me.
Even some of the some of the food at the aid stations and how they have them set up too is a big play, you know, like where we were stationed was at, you know, like I say, midnight, 85 kn.
Mm-hmm.
It's late. Everybody's cold and tired, you know, hot soup. Like that's just, I know that's
what you want in that moment.
Broth, oh, something warm, like hot chocolate, not hot chocolate. I don't like hot things when I'm like drinking things that I'm running, but you know, hot soup, Ichiban soup, something like that is just, that's the best thing.
Yeah.
And the pickle shots, people were like, and some people were like just blown away to even do it. But no, we didn't have any cups, because they're cupless races. It's normal. So no, but some people, I want some pickle juice, buddy. So I started pouring pickle juice in the lid of the jar. There's like a big gallon jar. Yeah. These guys are taking shots out of the pickle
shots. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Oh man. Well, I'm just trying to think. I think that's everything I had to ask about. I think that is just a fascinating journey, and I just want to thank you for coming on the show twice. And you know, it was fun for me to get to follow along and to ask all those questions. I'm a very curious guy, and I love nothing more than to have somebody that has expertise in a field and that's willing to be open about it and to talk about it in a vulnerable way. And I think this one too, but especially that first episode, to be that vulnerable and to talk about, you know, the bear encounter and all these lessons that you've learned from this, it really allowed me, and I hope that anybody that listened to it too, and I think they will, because I think what I feel is a good proxy for what people that listen are going to feel is it was very, it very much allowed me to go on the journey with you. And that was a really cool experience to have someone that, you know, I've been fascinated by this ultra running thing for a long time, but I've never been able to follow somebody along and be part of the journey. And I felt like that was very cool for myself to do. And I think there's probably some people listening that had that same journey. And I think going forward now with whatever else you do, they get to go on that journey. And I just wanted to say a really big thank you for that, because it was a really cool experience for myself. And if it's cool for me, it's probably cool for a lot of other people. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's one of those things too, where it almost makes me want to go back now and listen to that first episode again.
I listened to it this weekend, or maybe it was last week. Anyway, and it was, and this is the thing, I usually I don't listen back too much. You know, I'm just second guessing myself. Why'd you say that? And I'm going over all those things. I didn't have any of that. That was probably the first one I've listened to where I was just excited to hear the story, you know, and a little bit, I'm just going back to it. I really enjoyed doing that and actually listening to it. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's a long journey. And, you know, I guess if I had one piece of advice to anybody, it would be, don't ever sell yourself short. Like, you're stronger than you think you are.
Yeah.
Your mind is very strong. And that's the part that you have to learn to listen to and keep, you know, you have to train your mind to keep yourself going. Otherwise you just quit when it gets hard.
Yeah.
But you really can keep going.
Yeah.
And you can't judge by other people. Like, I still look at myself and I'm like, you know what? I'm a stubby 220 pound guy. Like, I shouldn't be running 200-mile runs. Like, that just shouldn't be, that's not really normal, but that's just proof to me, and should be to anybody, that it doesn't matter what your body build is. Like, I don't care if you can't, you know, if you think you want to try running 5K and right now you get winded when you go up the stairs, push yourself. Like, you can do that. You can do that 5K. You just have to push yourself. Don't listen to what other people say. Find positive people to hang out with and work on it and be smart. You can't do stupid things. If you do stupid things, you got to be smart about it. That's my motto. And like, the sky's the limit.
Yeah,
really it is.
I mean, I think a lot of people say that sentence right there, sky's the limit, but I think when it comes from somebody like you, it has a whole nother meaning. So, I hope people take that to heart. Thanks again. Is there anything we missed? Anything we didn't cover?
You know, I mentioned some of the sponsors.
Oh, right.
And
Maybe we should
I
go
don't
through
know
again.
the whole list off
Right.
by heart, but you know, there was a lot of people that just couples, anonymous donors that said, you know, they wish they had Odyssey House available to them.
Yeah.
They needed it.
Yeah.
People sponsored legs and said, you know what, I stayed at Odyssey House when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was, you know, the success wouldn't have been there without the sponsors. I guess the two goals was to run 200 miles and raise a lot of money for Odyssey House. And we did both. So, and it, you know, people said you did such an amazing thing. Well, I just ran it. Like, there was a lot of people that did, you know, what my wife did, what Ken did.
Yeah.
Those guys, they did a lot. They were up as much as I was.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody that donated far and wide, I don't know who all the people were that donated, but thanks to them for the success of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we'll probably maybe send me a list once you got it, and we can throw it in the description of the episode, everyone, so we don't miss anybody. I know at the end of the first episode, we went through it, but that was not everybody at that point. We'd gone through the whole list, but we'll make sure we get an updated list. And just a big thank you for me too, to all those people, because that's an awesome cause and it's an awesome thing. And it was made it all possible, and it was so much fun for me to follow along and to watch you accomplish it and kick its ass. I had never had a question in my mind that you were going to do it from that. After we had that conversation, I got to sit across and I was like, there is not a chance in my mind that this, unless he gets struck by lightning, and even then, I don't know. He's not, I don't think anything's going to stop him. So thanks again for coming on, spending your night with me. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate just to be able to sit down with you. And I personally cannot wait to see what's next and to follow along on the next one. And if ever you want to come talk about what's next, or come on after you do something crazy and talk about what you learned from it, I'm always here for you, Phil.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun, and I was looking forward to this one as well. So
awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and listen to the first episode.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so will the people listening right now that haven't heard it. Everybody go back and listen to it. All right. See you guys.
Thanks.
All right. There you have it. Episode 91 in the books. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I have a real fascination with these ultra runners, and ultra runners for sure, because it's such a condensed version of kind of what I'm referring to in general, but just those people that can push themselves, right? Like pro athletes and ultra runners and just people like that, or sometimes it's scientists. I just love people that are trying to chase greatness in whatever way they find fit. And I think there's so much to learn from. So I had a real good time talking to Phil. I'm hoping to have more people like Phil in the future. Maybe not, probably some ultra runners, but maybe some guys in different domains, but all that have that same thread of really pushing themselves and learning the lessons along the way that only come with pushing to those boundaries that most people try with everything in them to stay away from. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do me all those little things, following the social media accounts, telling a friend, passing it on, reaching out and let me know that you enjoyed it or you didn't like something or whatever it is. That always really helps me to get better. So I really enjoy hearing from you guys. All those little things. And if you don't want to, don't do it. I don't care. This is free. You don't owe me nothing. I don't owe you nothing. That's the beauty of this whole thing. So yeah, have a great week, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.